You weren't supposed to play Stardew Valley the way I'm about to show you. I didn't have time to make my house a home. I instead slept one tile from the front door every night. I had machines strewn about everywhere. No sheds, just raw industrial chaos. I planted thousands of crops, at times with no sprinklers, spending entire mornings manually watering. I picked more troubles in year 2 than most players will see in their entire lives. Was it aesthetic? Not particularly. But it was surely a spectacle. I accomplished everything in just 226 days. This isn't how anybody should play Stardew, but it's how I did. Now let's begin.
Day 1, I did the usual first day duties. I cleared out some farm space, planted my first parsnips, and when I ran out of energy to use, I spent the remainder of the day meeting all the townsfolk. Day 2, I got my first fishing rod from Willie. The first operation of this run involved needing an obscene amount of kale seeds. To purchase them, I needed an equally obscene amount of money for this early in a playthrough, so I fished for all of days 2 and 3. Day 3, I chose the angler profession for the 25% fish sale bonus, and I brought a chest with me on day 4 because I was starting to have to throw away fish due to inventory constraints. Day 5, the mines were open. I got some valuable coal and copper and some gems to sell for extra cash. I got to floor 20 pretty easily, and I managed to level up to mining level 2 and combat level 1 on day 6. Day 7, I checked the traveling cart, and luckily found my first red cabbage seed right away. I brought a gift to Lewis for his birthday, purchased the fiberglass rod, baited it up, and went fishing the entire day for money. I leveled up foraging to level 2, and fishing already to level 7. In the morning, I awoke to the achievement for making my first 15,000 G, the first achievement of many. I spent all day fishing once again. Day 9, my mother called me, and that led to me forgetting to press the record button. Here's a live-action reenactment of the day so you aren't without visual for this section of the video. In short, I bought 250 kale seeds from Pierre for 17,500 G. I almost had enough time to hoe and water each tile, but I ended up missing about 9 of them. I passed out at 2 a.m. with no energy, so I'll be waking up with no energy for day 10. And we're back online. I woke up with 1 energy, like I said, and so I foraged and bought some salads from Gus. The only saving grace was that it rained, so I didn't have to water my massive plot of kale for the day. I met the wizard for the first time, then fished in the afternoon. The next morning, Demetrius came by, and I chose the fruit bat cave over the mushroom cave for odds at getting community center fruit easy. The morning was spent watering the kale, and then I upgraded my backpack for 2,000 G at Pierre's. After that, I purchased more salads from Gus. I mined all afternoon into the evening. I decided to let myself pass out because I had leveled up combat today, so energy wasn't a concern, and I didn't have much money to lose anyways. Day 12 was spent mining again, and I got all the way down to floor 45. Day 13 was the egg festival. I bought a strawberry seed here, since it's the only place I can get one in the whole playthrough. I won a straw hat for first place in the egg hunt. This will be my primary accessory until my villain arc is completed much later on. I made sure to plant the strawberry when I got home, just before bedtime. Day 14, I checked the traveling cart again. She didn't have much, but even if she did, I was pretty much broke. I spent the beginning of this rainy day fishing in the river for catfish to rustle up some more salad money. I brought Haley a daffodil for her birthday. I unluckily rolled 2 infested floors in a row in the mines, which really stymied my progression, but it did get me up to combat level 3. In the morning, I had my first kale harvest. This got me quickly up to farming level 6, so I now could craft quality sprinklers. Not that I had the resources to make use of them yet. I sold the kale to Pierre and got another 325 seeds from him, as well as 2 cauliflower seeds and 2 green bean seeds. Before I started planting, I went to the mines to retrieve my furnaces and returned to Clint with the 5 iron bars needed for a pickaxe upgrade. I was able to get 268 kale seeds planted before running out of time at the end of the night. I got to foraging level 3, and I chose the tiller profession to boost profits from crops. On day 16, I started off by planting the remaining kale seeds. I went around the valley collecting salmon berries, then fished at the river for catfish. I got fishing level 9 at the end of the day. The next morning was spent watering all my kale. Even with animation canceling, it takes me until 2 p.m. to finish it all, but at least it's not as energy intensive now that I'm level 6 farming. I picked up my steel pick at Clint's and dropped off my axe to be upgraded to copper. Finally had a chance to enter the Adventurers Guild and picked up the insect blade for completing the grub eradication goal, and I managed to get to mining level 4 by the end of the day. Day 18's morning went straight to the kale. I brought Pam a salmon berry after that. In the mines, dust sprites dropped me a crystal fruit and a coffee bean, which was very convenient to get this early on. I got down to floor 65, and when I returned home, I planted the coffee bean before bed. Combat was upgraded to level 4 today too. It rained on day 19, so there was no need to water. I checked out the traveling cart. She had wool, which I considered purchasing but decided not to. I got my copper axe from Clint, then I went to Pierre to purchase some parsnip and potato seeds. I dropped off Robin's axe for her side quest and headed to the mines until about 8 p.m., where I managed to get to floor 80. Then I left to go fish up an eel for the community center. Finally, I planted the parsnip and potato seeds at the end of the day. The next day, I built my first recycler, then watered all the crops, as is tradition. I went to the beach and fished up a sardine for the community center. Then I brought Shane a beer for his birthday. After that excursion, I mined until the end of the day. I reached mining level 5, and I I chose the miner profession, giving me +1 ore for each ore node broken. I awoke day 21 to harvest another huge round of kale, getting me up to farming level 8. I brought the harvest to Pierre to sell, where I also purchased another exorbitant amount of kale seeds. I used some of the remaining proceeds to request the steel axe upgrade from Clint. Day 22, I harvested the rest of the kale, getting up to level 9 farming. I watered for the first part of the day, then went mining for more resources. Things were getting messy day 23, so I decided to organize my chests early. I then harvested some parsnips, and I got the last few gold quality ones that I needed for the community center. I went around gifting some things to the townsfolk, then went to Clint to pick up my steel axe and told him to keep it and upgrade it to gold too. I finished watering, went mining for a bit, then went to sleep. Overnight, a random fairy event occurred, finishing up a 5x5 plot of my kale. I woke up to, guess what? Water my crops! I harvested my fairy dusted kale, then it was time to go to the flower dance. There I purchased the rare crow as well as the tub of flowers recipe, so I don't have to come back for next year's flower dance. I didn't ask anyone to dance, mainly because my closest friend at this point was Shane, and I didn't really want to dance with Shane. At the end of the night, I brought the spring forage items to the community center to complete that first bundle. I sold the rewarded spring seeds for some extra cash and headed to bed. Day 25, I harvested some green beans and potatoes early and watered the crops. I picked up the golden axe from Clint and dropped off my pick to be upgraded to gold as well. Then I opened the secret woods and harvested some hardwood for the first time. I spent some time organizing my storage after that and upgraded to foraging level 4 by the end of the day. I stopped at the traveling cart early, got a crayfish and a cherry for the community center. Then I brought Pierre a parsnip for his birthday on day 26. I went to fish for some more community center donation fish, and then I just foraged and chopped down trees throughout the valley. Day 27, instead of watering, I got to harvest my last round of kale in the morning. Proving once again with great commitment, anyone can get farming level 10 before summer year 1. I picked my cauliflower and completed the spring crops bundle at the community center. I fished up a sunfish, then picked up my golden pickaxe from Clint. I also brought Emily a jade for her birthday. And after finding a fire quartz at the mines, I went to complete the boiler room bundle. Now the minecarts would be operational, which are a great set of shortcuts. I chose the artisan profession that night, and for getting combat to level 5, I chose the scout profession for getting extra critical chances. Day 28, I cleared a ton of debris on the farm, and really got it tidied up for next season. I checked the traveling cart and picked up a lucky lunch and some artichoke seeds. I crafted and placed 7 tappers around the farm, 3 for oak resin, 3 for maple, and 1 for pine tar. I chose the forester profession instead of the gatherer profession. Later on I'll need to change this, but I need an eye-watering amount of wood for what I have planned, so I'll be rolling with this profession for now. On the first day of summer, I crafted 14 sprinklers and set them out first thing. Then I bought some seeds at Pierre's shop. I also got an apple sapling. I planted most of the melon seeds and at least 2 of all the other newly available summer crops before closing the book on day 29. The next morning, I planted some remaining melon seeds, and I went mining and got to level 100, retrieving the first star drop. It reminded me of my absolute favorite thing, liking videos. I wonder if it reminds anybody else of that. In other news, I also reached level 6 mining. Day 31, I cleaned up the newly opened train station, then commissioned Robin for my first barn. I spent the rest of the day mining because, as you will notice is a common theme this run, I still need more sprinklers. Day 4 of summer is Jazz's birthday, so I gave her a birthday gift. I donated a ton of stuff to the community center and to the museum. I then went to, where else? The mines, to get some bug meat because my rod is out of bait. While there, I reached mining level 7. The next day was the green rain day, so I spent all of it gathering plant fibers and moss. I also stopped by the traveling cart merchant, who was seemingly unbothered by this biblical event. At the end of the day, I used some of my moss spoils and made a deluxe worm bin. Day 34, I mined early. Then I planted more wheat for the community center, and I cut down every tree in Cindersap Forest. No, literally, every tree. Needless to say, I got foraging up to level 7. I checked the traveling cart the next morning. She was selling a peach, and I decided to buy it. I also bought a cow from Marnie. I appropriately named her Betsy, because that's a cow's name. Then I planted every tree seed I had in storage at the train station. I paid Robin to start building a coop as well so I could finally get some chickens, and I spent the rest of the day cutting down trees, and I got the Woody's Secret book. Day 36, I awoke to cut down more trees on the farm and to water crops. I brought Gus a diamond for his birthday. He loved it. I spent the remainder of the day getting to floor 110 of the mines. The next morning, I took some time to pause and do a review of how funds were shaping up, and determined that I was going to need to really pick up the pace on money making soon. I also totally didn't forget to plant this red cabbage seed until now. I went to Clint to finally process all the geodes I had collected throughout the run to this point, and I got about 20 new minerals from that, and donated all of them to the museum. I then went mining because I was sweating at the thought of how many sprinklers I still needed to craft. I ended up getting to floor 120 and getting the skull key while I was there. At the end of the day, I almost forgot to water my melons, but had just enough time to get that done too. The following morning, I realized that I had forgotten to provide food for Betsy. Oh geez. I bought some hay from Marnie to feed the poor thing, then I went to gift Maru a gold bar for her birthday. I still needed a lot more iron and copper for my maniacal plans, so I headed back to the mines. Day 39 was the luau, and since I hadn't yet sourced Lewis's boxers for the potluck secret ingredient, I instead went to go fish up a lava eel on floor 100 of the mines. I also had a chance to put out some fish pots finally. The following morning, I went to the traveling cart where I was lucky to find and purchase a snow yam. Remember, this is a canon event for the playthrough. The snow yam eventually becomes my arch nemesis. I went to Robin to commission construction for a silo. I then fished up a sturgeon at the lake, then a red snapper, a red mullet, a flounder, and a super cucumber at the beach. I also leveled up foraging to level 8. I carved out the next farm plot early the next morning. I then harvested my bountiful melons. I went to Pierre's before he closed to purchase grass starter, hop seeds, and a funny number of melon seeds. Brought Alex a salad for his birthday, a perfect gift for the health nut. Due to sprinkler coverage and time constraints, I unfortunately didn't get to plant every melon seed. I needed to get these last 80 in the ground as soon as I had enough quality sprinklers. Day 42, I bought the large chest recipe from Robin and a workbench so I could reconfigure my storage. I then went to the mines to get more resources for quality sprinklers. Somehow, got my very first prismatic shard from a dust sprite, which was awesome. The next day, I reorganized the storage some more. I sold some melons to Pierre and was able to purchase the last backpack upgrade finally. I also requested Robin upgrade the barn. I crafted some more sprinklers and was able to plant the rest of the leftover melon seeds at the end of the day. Day 44 was a full-on fishing day. At the beach, I caught a pufferfish for the community center, as well as a tilapia. I fixed the broken bridge with some of my excess wood, and I was able to catch the crimson fish off the eastern pier, my first legendary catch. Day 45, I returned to the beach to fish up a tuna. I managed to hook my first octopus, but it got away almost instantly. Now begins a canon saga between me and the cephalopod. I bought Sam a pizza for his birthday, then gifted a few more villagers. I fished up my first rainbow trout while Elliot was watching. How wholesome. I donated a yam, a tomato, a blueberry, a melon, and a hot pepper to the community center, earning yet another quality sprinkler. I also donated a peach, snow yam, and some pine tar, and a tuna, then 10 wheat, 10 hay, a poppy, and a sea urchin. When I got home from this busy donation session, I made a keg and started brewing some spiceberry wine for another future donation. Day 45 was another battle with the octopus. I had him on the hook again, twice, in fact, but it got away both times. I gave up after 11 a.m. and grumpily gifted Willie a catfish. At the mountain lake, I fished up a sturgeon for Willie, and finally reached fishing level 10, which felt great. I picked the finished red cabbage for the community center, and at the end of the night, I chose the angler profession. The traveling cart had a nautilus shell for 600G. I purchased it for the community center bundle, and then I gifted another handful of villagers and bought some more seeds at Pierre's. At the mines, I caught my first ghost fish. Then I did some mining before returning home to plant more seeds. I brought a gold peach to Robin from the Batcave for her birthday on day 48, then I mined all day. At nighttime, I placed even more sprinklers and planted some summer seeds. Day 49, I learned you can get a prize ticket from behind the bookseller's stand area. Then I brought some gifts to the mountain townsfolk. I tried to give Sebastian a frozen tear, but he's edgy and goons in his room all day. I spent the rest of the day in the mines gathering more resources. Day 50, it rained, and I went on yet another gifting spree. I submitted my first prize ticket, granting me some boring broccoli seeds. Meh. I gifted Sebastian a frozen tear after getting a rare sighting of him outside. The rest of the mountain dwellers received another round of gifts. Then I checked on monster eradication goal progress. I just crossed the halfway mark on dust sprites. I went mining again and I reached level 9 mining. Day 51 it rained again, and the weather report revealed that there would be yet another rainy day tomorrow, which is great. I shouldn't have any battery shortages later on in the run. I continued grinding at the mines for more dust sprite unlives. In doing so, I reached combat level 7. In the morning I harvested more batteries. I gave Demetrius a melon for one of his journal requests. Then it was back to the mines, for which I yearn. It's too late now for me to do anything with it, but I finally got an ancient seed to drop at 7:30 p.m. I forgot to record day 53 sadly, but that's okay because it was mostly spent mining. Here's a summary of what happened. I found our first rainbow shell at the beach. I tried to fish up another octopus, but was once again defeated by its crafty ways. I brought Willie a sturgeon, and Elliot a salad, and I also brought George a hot pepper for a quest. Then I gave Evelyn an oyster. Finally, Sebastian received his second frozen tear this week.
That was a There was a ghost! There's ectoplasm!
Day 54, I purchased some roasted hazelnuts from the traveling cart. I cut down every tree in the valley, leveling up my foraging to level 9 in the process. I brought Willie yet another sturgeon, and I finally earned the burglar ring for completing the dust sprites eradication goal. This will be huge for coal grinding. Day 55, I brought a bunch of items to the community center, and I brought some things to the museum too. I got my first ancient seed as a reward, and some pumpkin seeds for fall as well. I spent another day mining, and I employed the use of some charcoal kilns to ramp up coal production, since I had so much wood on hand to process. At night, I made 4 farmers' lunches for use on harvesting days.
With summer wrapping up, it feels like a good time to discuss my incredibly neurodivergent plan. I had been mining all this copper so that I could create too many tappers, because I need to get 2 very important resources: oak resin and maple syrup. Oak resin is needed for kegs, and maple syrup is needed for bee houses. But these taps take 7 days for oak resin and 9 for maple syrup, so I need to get them started as soon as possible. I also need to be sure that I have a deluxe barn, because that's the only barn that can contain a pig. Pigs are very important because they produce truffles. And why do I need a truffle so early on? Well, of course, because there's a donation at the community center for it. Now, in terms of summer completion, aside from the Dorado and the octopus, I've fished up everything that I can get in summer, which is great. That damn octopus. On the friendship side of things, I've been steadily friending people, and it looks like I'm definitely along the way. The key here is that I need to make sure I don't miss any more birthdays. Now, once I finish the vault bundle at the community center, I'll be able to open up the desert and finally start grinding some iridium at the Skull Cavern, which is going to be very important if I want to get to Ginger Island as soon as possible.
Day 56, I ate a farmer's lunch and harvested the summer's final field of melons. I bought a rare seed from the traveling cart, and I fished up that Dorado. I also got a wood skip for the community center. I made 50 tappers and placed them at the train station, and spent the rest of my day and night chopping down trees on the farm. I managed to make 147,000 G off the melons and the supporting cast. Just enough to carry out the next plan. The first day of fall, I cleaned up the farm and got ready for the next set of crops. I went to Pierre and purchased probably too many cranberry seeds. I'm not crazy, you're crazy. I purchased the vault bundle so the desert bus would be repaired. I then spent literally the entire day working on the field, and I wondered if I was going to have enough time, and I didn't even get close. Oh well, the bus was restored by the professional mechanic Junimos at the end of the day. I do love their interpretive dance repair method. It truly is a marvel to behold. I planted the remainder of the cranberry seeds early the next morning, then I went to the desert to buy some beet seeds, and to get a sandfish for the community center, and for Penny for her birthday. I brought that to her upon my return. I then headed to grind hardwood, which I was going to need to complete the special order I accepted today for Robin. Day 59, I grabbed some hardwood in the morning. Then I went on a gifting spree, planted a ton of trees at the desert, gave the same group of villagers gifts again, and hey, I'm finally friendly enough with Sebastian that I can go into his room. Sweet. But not like in a weird paranormal way. I fished the rest of the day because
I need cash now!
Day 61, I gave Elliot a pomegranate for his birthday. I fished until 7 p.m., then just cleared out more foliage on the farm with the rest of my energy. Following day, I requested a big coop from Robin, then I went fishing for the entire day again. I fished up the Jewels of the Sea book, and read it promptly for bonus row from treasure chests. I gave Gus a diamond that I got from a treasure chest as well, then I bought a few salads for extra energy needs. In the morning, I finally completed Robin's hardwood quest. I submitted my prize ticket at Lewis's prize machine, and I got a peach sapling, which is mildly useless thanks to the fruit bat cave. I had time to fish north of town and catch the anglerfish, which I was happy to sell for some extra cash. And I also got my first batch of oak resin from the tree farm. I went home and continued clearing out foliage. I was able to harvest my first batch of cranberries the next morning, and I got enough money to construct a deluxe barn. I requested it from Robin after giving Linus his berry basket that he asked me to look for. I then went berry picking and foraging throughout the valley. I cut down every tree I could, and cleared a bunch of debris around the cindersap forest. At the end of the day, I continued clearing out some foliage at the farm until I ran out of energy. I did some light reading before bed, and in the middle of the night, another fairy stopped by, and finished a handful of my pumpkins for me. How kind. Day 65, I ate a farmer's lunch, then harvested my massive plot of cranberries. These are going to bring in 60,000 G, which isn't too shabby for a 7-day wait. I accepted the aquatic overpopulation special order for Demetrius this week. With the cranberry money, I stopped by the bookseller and purchased Way of the Wind Part 1 and Ol' Slitherlegs, because moving through my field of crops can be so slow sometimes. I went to gift some more folks, and I accidentally gave an amaranth meant for Marnie's journal request to Emily. Thankfully, I grew more than I needed. After that, I collected my first batch of maple syrup. After waking up, I stopped by Marnie's to purchase a duck, whom I named Donald. No, not after that, Donald. That one. I also purchased my first truffle pig, naming him Fred, because I felt like that name suits a pig. Sorry to any Freds out there, but you're probably not feeling as wrecked as the two women watching from earlier named Betsy. I accepted a help wanted request to slay some squid kids, and I need to grind for some gold anyways, so I headed to the mines after gifting the usual villagers their second round of gifts for the week. I managed to complete the quest easily. I collected my reward from the wizard, and gifted him a void essence while I was there. I then made a bait maker at the end of the day, and was able to catch 6 midnight carp. Day 67, I cleaned up some stuff on the farm and went to buy a goat from Marnie. I named her Tom Brady for obvious reasons. I then went to see Jody to drop off a diamond for her birthday. After that, I went to see Robin and requested construction of a deluxe coop. Then I went to the mines to grind coal for most of the afternoon. I was able to get 90 coal on the day with 4 charcoal kilns going at all times, and I fished for the last midnight carp I needed to finish Demetrius' special order at the end of the day. The following day, I got some more recipes in the mail, and I got wool from Emily for the community center. Nice. I put a hop in my keg to make a pale ale. I also brought some more items to the museum, where I received the Dwarvish translation manual and the first rare crow of 2 that I'll get from there. I headed to the community center and completed some more bundles as well. The remainder of the day was spent grinding coal. Along the way, I got mining up to level 10, making combat my only skill that isn't maxed out at this point. I planted some fall seeds and placed a heater in the barn before clearing some foliage at the end of the day. I chose the Prospector trait for mining level 10, so we would get extra coal drops. 20 number day was a lucky day, if you know what I mean. Because the spirits were very happy. So I'm going to the Skull Cavern, after I harvested some more cranberries. I then cooked up some roots platters on a cookout kit. I sold the cranberries to Pierre, gifted an amethyst to Abigail for her birthday, and purchased 3 rabbits from Marnie. I named them Albin, Simon, and Theodore, after Albin and the Chipmunks. I headed to the desert after that, and it was nice to see the trees I'd planted earlier growing already. I exchanged the prismatic shard from earlier for the galaxy sword, ate a root splatter, and headed into the cavern. The goal today was not to get iridium, but to slay monsters for combat levels and completion. Iridium wouldn't be so bad to get either, though. I almost got down to floor 20, and I got some decent iridium ore drops from the purple slimes that I was slaying. I leveled up to combat level 8, so I passed out in the cavern to get some extra grinding time in. After that long night in the cavern, I harvested my second set of cranberries early the next day. Placed 25 bee houses next to my finished fairy roses as well. Then brought some gifts to the usual recipients, and I submitted a prize ticket to receive some mixed seeds.
Boring.
I grabbed my oak resin at the train station tree farm, and after that, I brought Pam a pale ale to enjoy while she drove me to the desert for more Skull Cavern combat grinding. Thankfully, there are no police in Pelican Town, so she doesn't have to worry about getting a DUI. I completed Key's challenge to reach floor 25 of the cavern, without staircases, I might add. Day 71, Jody invited me to dinner. I went to the mountains to give some gifts, and to fish up a largemouth bass, per her request. I asked Robin to upgrade my humble cabin so I could finally have a kitchen. I also went to see Sandy at the desert to drop off a gold quality sweet pea for her birthday. I went into the cavern for a brief jaunt and ended up finding a hugely improbable iridium node cluster that gave me all the iridium I would need for the Ginger Island vote. Seriously, there was probably like a 1 in 1,000 chance I would find a cluster this large on such an early floor. And on top of that, I got a rabbit's foot to drop from one of the serpents for the center. I headed home early to get these iridium bars smelting in some furnaces, and so I could make it to dinner at Jody's at 7 p.m. sharp. After dinner, I went to the mines to continue grinding my combat. Along the way, I accepted Clint's Cave Patrol special order for slaying skeletons in the mines. Today was the day of the fair, and I wasn't paying attention to the calendar, so I haphazardly put together some of my best produce and went fishing in the river for an iridium quality tiger trout to hopefully tip the scales in my favor before heading to the festival. Once I got there, I set up the Grange display, and honestly, it could have been a lot worse. After some suspenseful judging, Lewis did give my display first prize, which honestly surprised me. The 1,000 star token boost is nice, but I had a lot of fishing to do in the minigame to get the 3,800 I'd need for the star drop, the rare crow, and that bonus prize ticket. This was my second star drop, and this is your second subliminal message about liking videos. It's cool if you don't, it's cool, but
It'd be a lot cooler if you did.
I went home, crafted a new crystallarium, and started off with replicating jades. Day 73, I gave Shane a salad and Lewis a roots platter, then I used yesterday's prize ticket to pull 3 mystery boxes. I bought a trout soup from Willie and gifted it right back to him, wondering why I hadn't been doing this the entire time. I then gifted a bunch of villagers, then I headed to the bus stop to give Pam a plum I found laying 5 feet away from her. She took me to the desert so I could go down in the Skull Cavern to do some more combat grinding. And I passed out at the end of the night, right outside my door, because I almost forgot to close up the barn animals. The morning of day 74, I awoke in my newly upgraded cabin. Very swanky. I went outside to craft another crystallarium. I then went to the community center to finally complete the pantry bundles and get the greenhouse unlocked. I completed a couple of other bundles, and the only 4 items left to donate were the crocus, the walleye, the duck feather, and the truffle. While on my way to Clint to crack some geodes, I took the opportunity to grab the alleyway buffet book hiding behind his shop. At one point in the geode cracking session, I got 2 mystery boxes out of 1, and I pondered how that would even be possible physically. I got a bunch of gems and minerals for the museum and donated them accordingly. I requested a copper hoe from Clint, then I grabbed my maple syrup from the tree farm at the train station and proceeded to spend the day finishing up Clint's special order in the mines. After beating up a bunch of skeletons, I went up to take a look at the monster eradication goals, and I was getting pretty far along, about halfway through the slimes and still plenty of opportunities to get all the rest done on time. I headed home and crafted a 4th crystallarium. Today I leveled up to combat 9, leaving me just about 5,000 combat XP away from starting the mastery grind. I began the next day with a farmer's lunch and a lot of crop harvesting. I had to pluck up and relocate a dozen quality sprinklers now that the greenhouse was operational. I placed another 10 beehives next to the fairy roses and was very happy to collect my first batch of honey. I headed to Pierre to gift each member of his family and to drop off a pumpkin to Caroline, who requested one for me in a letter I received that morning. The traveling cart was selling an iridium bar for a fair price, so I bought it. I brought Clint a red mushroom for a help wanted quest, and he gave me a prize ticket to go with the other one I just earned from the board. At Lewis's, I got my first stardrop tea from it. I then headed to the desert to buy just over 100 starfruit seeds for the greenhouse. Back at the farm, the realization that I didn't have my hoe struck and left me frozen for just a second, but then I remembered the other way to dig in Stardew Valley. Explosives! These should be safe to set off in my newly repaired glass house. I managed to till all the soil quite easily, and here's all the seeds planted in the ground. The next day I purchased 4 more pigs and 2 more rabbits from Marnie. I named the pigs Harry, Porky, Sweaty, and Pig. Come on guys, not everyone is going to have an original name. I also named the rabbits Bugs and Lola, and after that I gifted Sam and Harvey each a coffee. Then I requisitioned Clint's services on my hoe. From there I hit the Skull Cavern and continued grinding my combat level. I got a free iridium bar from a purple slime on floor 17, and I got to floor 26, netting a sizable amount of combat XP along the way. I placed a heater in the coop, now both buildings have that covered for the upcoming winter. I awoke day 77 to find a duck feather in the coop and a truffle, so that leaves only 2 more items to finish the community center. I checked the traveling cart. She did have another fairly priced iridium bar which I purchased, but unfortunately not much else. I then went on a gifting spree and managed to get the networking achievement after giving Shane a blackberry. I gave Pam a cactus fruit to snack on while she drove me to the desert, as has been the routine, and I spent a little time fishing for sandfish there to gift to Penny later on. Then I entered the cavern once again to grind combat. That night there was a strong windstorm, and that indicates that the raccoon tree quests are ready to begin. I checked out the raccoon tree, now telling me that I'd need 100 hardwood to fix it up, and then I went on yet another gift-giving spree, seeing the Wizard, Jazz, Marnie, Vincent, Jody, Haley, Emily, Penny, Lewis, Clint, Alex, Evelyn, George, Pierre, Abigail, Caroline, Harvey, Willie, and Sandy for the 2nd time this week. What a mouthful. Along the way, I took on a new special order, this time for Linus. He wants me to fish up some trash in the valley to clean up the place. Easy peasy. I then returned to the Skull Cavern once again for more combat grinding. The morning of day 79, I met Evelyn at my front door. She shared a garden pot as well as the recipe to make more. I harvested some cranberries and fairy rose honey, and then I got my inventory ready for some more gift giving around town. I harvested some oak resin at the train station, then I requested Clint start working on my bucket, now that my hoe was gold. After that, I went to, you guessed it, the Skull Cavern to continue grinding combat. How many times have I said that now? I got another iridium bar for free and some decent iridium drops from purple slimes. I'm slowly inching my way to level 10. And gosh, that fairy rose honey sure does pay handsomely. Day 80, I harvested some more cranberries. I gifted George a leek for his birthday as well. And after that, I went and purchased another barn from Robin and moved the current farm layout around. Finally, went to fish up a walleye and dropped it off at the community center. completing the entirety of the fishing bundles. Then I did some fishing at the spa to get most of the trash needed for Linus's special order. At the end of the night, the Junimos danced around the rock at the mountain, magically removing it from this plane of existence. Neat! In the morning, I found the spicy eel recipe in my mailbox sent from George. I received the pan from Willie when I went to the mountain lake. Then I finished up Linus's special order. I gifted Linus and Sebastian, finishing up gifts for everybody this week. Then I went to the bookseller to trade in some books and to purchase Way of the Wind Part 2, giving me a little bit more speed wherever I walk. I stopped by Clint's to request another bucket upgrade, then I grabbed some grass starter from Pierre's and built a fence for the critters. Although I thought about it as I was finishing up and realized it was probably a waste of time to set up just before winter. But whatever, it looks organized. In the morning, I got the fiber seeds recipe from Linus in the mail, then I headed to Clint to crack some geodes and got a few more minerals to donate to the museum. Then I dropped off a rainbow shell at the train station for Key and headed to the traveling cart after that. On the way there, I picked up a sweet gemberry which had finally grown from the rare seed, and after seeing that the traveling cart had nothing interesting, I went to the secret forest to claim my third star drop at the Mr. Cannoli statue. I went to the desert for more combat grinding, and right outside the bus I found a copy of Jack Be Nimble, Jack Be Thick under an artifact spot. I woke to Gunter at my doorstep. He kindly gave me the keys to the sewers for reaching the milestone of 60 donated museum items. Now I could finally meet my favorite sewer-dwelling monster, Krobus. I crafted 9 more ridiculously coal-expensive seed makers, then I went to finally meet the dwarf for the first time, from whom I purchased the dwarf's rare crow and the dwarvish safety manual, making bombs do 25% less damage to me. I then went to meet Krobus. I bought his star drop for 20,000 G, my 4th star drop so far, which reminded me once again of liking videos, something you really ought to try if you still haven't. I gave Krobus a horseradish while I was there, and he loved it. At the Skull Cavern, I finally made it to level 10 and teleported back home. I got right to chopping down trees to grind mastery XP from there. Towards the end of the night, I went to the Spirits Eve Festival before too late and purchased the Rare Crow, as well as the Jack-o'-lantern recipe. I also got the Golden Pumpkin from the maze. The next morning, I harvested cranberries yet again. I gifted another horseradish to Krobus and brought a prize ticket to Lewis's, which got me 4 free preserves jars. Clint gave me the steel bucket, and I left him with my pickaxe and 5 iridium bars for my first iridium tool upgrade. I brought a gift to the dwarf, and I stopped by Robin's for my second big barn upgrade. I seized some of the tappers from the train station and went to the desert to place them on some fresh trees that had just finished growing there. I chopped down more trees for the rest of the day to grind XP. And that closes out fall for year 1. On the first day of winter, I started out by cleaning up my sprinkler array and seeding some cranberries to bring to Ginger Island very soon. I planted a handful of powdermelon seeds, then I got my inventory together for another gifting spree. I found the first crocus at the bus station right away. On my way through town, I picked up the omelet special order for Gus. I went to the farm to grab the truffle and duck feather that I had stashed, and with those items donated, every bundle was finally complete. To think I completed the community center on winter 1, I felt really quite accomplished. This was by far the earliest I had ever completed this part of the game, and aside from that, it just felt like the run was graduating from the early game. It was time to move on to better things, a new journey, full of new and exciting tests. In a few more days, I could finally unlock access to Ginger Island. After exiting the center, I found the shadowy figure in the bush behind the building and was granted the magnifying glass, making secret notes findable. Then I went home, crafted some kegs, finally got some coffee brewing. I also checked the fruit bat cave and realized how much I had neglected this thing. I did need an apricot for a recipe later on, so I picked one up and left a mess for future me to deal with another day. While I slept, the Junimos used their incomprehensible dancing techniques to re-engineer the quarry bridge back into this plane of reality. Is there anything they can't do? I awoke in the morning to receive my friendship bonus for completing the community center, and I checked my total progress delightedly. I already have 10 hearts with Robin, Demetrius, and Linus, and I'm very close to 10 on a lot of others, so gift sprees will finally be winding down soon. On my way through the valley gifting people, I was stopped at the community center completion cutscene, and I was granted the hero trophy. How sweet. While going around, I also stopped by Clint's and picked up the iridium pickaxe. I went to clear out the quarry with some good old explosives, and I was very happy with the amount of coal I received from it. I also got a prismatic shard, which is always great. After that, I went to retrieve the golden scythe from the quarry cave, and my hubris got me very close to death. Thankfully, I made it out alive. After that, I went home to organize the day's spoils, and I cleared some more trees on the farm to make room for the barn I plan to add next. Day 87, I went to Robin to request yet another barn upgrade, getting the second barn up to the deluxe status. I gifted some more folks, and I cut down every single tree in the entire valley mostly. I also caught my first perch from the river. I started out day 88 by harvesting my first greenhouse crop of starfruit. After that, I seeded them all, as these would be coming with me to Ginger Island very soon. I cleared out all the trees on the farm, and then I went ahead and fished up a couple of squids at the beach. Upon catching the second one, I reached a new level of understanding. I mulled over which mastery option to pick first, but ultimately decided that the most sensible option for right now was the farming mastery because of the iridium scythe. I swung my new toy around a little bit and was very satisfied to be holding it on only day 4 of winter. Later on, I went to the train station and got the wizard cutscene that grants access to the Void Swamp. All the trees I grew here made for a pretty cursed view of the scene, though. Because I needed plant fibers for the Statue of Blessings, I planted some fiber seeds in the greenhouse the next morning. I went to see Robin and requested she erect yet another barn for me. I got all my stuff together preemptively for the Ginger Island excursion tomorrow, and I went to Willie's boat to drop off everything that was needed for the repairs. Then I spent the remaining time I had chopping and replanting trees at the desert for some more XP now and down the road. Upon the morning of day 90, it was time for the maiden voyage. As soon as I got to the Ginger Island dock, I executed a very precise golden walnut route. Once Island North was opened via the parrot at Leo's hut, I managed to get enough walnuts there to open Island West. I gathered up all the easy-to-get walnuts in a single walkthrough around the place, and ended my first day on the island with the farmhouse being put together by my new parrot friends, who, similar to the Junimo race, are able to mystifyingly assemble structures out of thin air. I cleared as much debris from the new land as possible. This was all about to be filled with seed. Day 91 was a battle against time. I had 333 cranberries and 199 starfruit seeds to plant. I spent every minute possible preparing the land for these seeds, and with absolutely no time to spare, I did manage to get the last seed in the ground by 1:40 a.m. I retired to the bungalow after that for a well-deserved rest. On day 92, I needed to tie up just a couple more loose ends here. I planted some coffee beans, I got my fairy roses in the ground on the west side of the farm, and that was when I got the notification that today's festival was beginning. I warped home so I could make it to the festival. There, I bought another rare crow and participated in the ice fishing competition. After the festival, I went to the XP storage, train station farm, where I chopped down a bunch more trees. Day 93, I got my inventory together early for another gift-giving spree. I stopped by Clint's to open some geodes and to upgrade my watering bucket to gold. I donated a couple more gems to the museum, then grabbed another challenge from the special orders board. I just need to bring a few gems to Emily to get another prize ticket. Then I headed to the tree farm to do some more chopping. Day 94, I went out to first request another big barn upgrade from Robin. Then I gifted Sebastian for his birthday, maxing friendship out with him. I also got George and Jody to max hearts today too. After giving Gus some escargot that I received from a mystery box, I checked my friend progress summary and enjoyed that weekly satisfaction of seeing 2 gift boxes checked off for every villager. I spent tonight retrieving the dark talisman from the sewer cave. I also fished up the first and only slime jack of the run. I came home and found out that I had just enough plant fiber from the slime cave to make the Statue of Blessings. I placed it right next to the front door and went to bed. Day 95 was the day I designated to get all the winter fishing requirements finished. I caught my first lingcod, then at Clint's I picked up my newly golden watering can. I left in my hoe to upgrade to gold next. I bought an iridium rod from Willie and attached it with a cork bobber, and back at Cindersap Forest, after a long battle, I was able to catch the glacier fish. I also caught the fabled goby down by the waterfall just to get it out of the way. And I managed to get the mutant carp after that down in the sewers. I went to the train station to fish in the witch's swamp. I got my first void salmon, and I kept fishing until I fished up the void mayonnaise. I immediately gave it to the goblin guarding the witch's hut. After retrieving and giving the wizard his magic ink back, I returned to the swamp to fish for a little while longer. I turned a bunch of wood into coal while fishing there to double the utility of my time. Friday morning I went to see Robin and I had just enough money to buy the last barn upgrade. I then headed to the museum to drop off a ton of new donations that I had been hoarding. After that, I brought the 10 beets to Lewis's fridge for Key finally, and I dropped off an amethyst to Emily for Clint. Then I brought the Wizard of Void Essence, which he specifically requested, unlike the 10 I've brought to him twice a week for the last 2 months. Lastly, I brought 2 dozen eggs to Gus's fridge so I could finally get that special order finished too. With the resulting prize ticket, I was finally able to pull Friendship 101 from Lewis's prize machine. This would make finishing up Friendship 10% faster, which is a great buff. I went to the squid fishing event next, and I of course used some charcoal kilns the whole time to grind more coal. There, I caught my first sea cucumber, which was one of the last mainland fish I needed to catch, aside from that octopus. I managed to get all 8 squid for the day, and I pulled the Art of Crabbing book from the reward station, so I got what I came for. I'm not quite sure how he did it, but Gus managed to fit a fridge in my mailbox this morning. I placed it in my kitchen next to my sewing machine and jukebox that I failed to mention receipt of earlier.
Oh. The biggest focus for me right now is making sure I hit the money mark. Eventually, I need to purchase all 4 obelisks, as well as the golden clock, which cost 14 million G combined. If you're wondering why I've been upgrading all these deluxe barns, it's because I need as much space as I can possibly get for pigs. Pigs are the most lucrative animal that I can get my hands on, and despite the fact that they cost 16,000 G apiece, they make up for it with the truffles that they end up producing. I also need to get as many bee houses up at Ginger Island as I possibly can around those berry roses that I just planted. Berry rose honey is the most lucrative honey, and it's basically passive free income with no input once you put the bee houses out. The only problem is that bee houses take 8 coal each to produce, and that means I need literally 1,000 coal for the amount of bee houses that I want. So I'll be running charcoal kilns perpetually until I get there. The only other thing on my mind is XP. I need to get the mining mastery next so that I can get the heavy furnace. Heavy furnaces allow you to use less coal, and they also have a chance to produce more resources, meaning that I'll be able to get the most bang for my buck out of all these resources that I've been hoarding in my storage.
So, with those 2 focuses in mind, I decided to craft a few bombs and get myself ready for a run at the Skull Cavern. I stopped by Clint's to drop off my copper pan for upgrading after he finished up my golden hoe, then I went to the desert. I got another prismatic shard from a serpent on floor 6, and I found at least 5 secret notes early on, which was somewhat improbable. I've already found almost half of them. I got my inventory together for another short gifting spree. The biggest of note would be Harvey's birthday gift. That got me almost max hearts with him. I went to the island farm and harvested my cranberries next. Then I cleaned up the palm trees here to expand my coconut collection, which I'll be needing a lot of later on. I got a golden walnut from a mussel cluster, one of 5 that I need to find, and I was lucky enough to get the one possible golden walnut drop from the tiger slimes. Then I tried my hand at Simon Says, but I'm terrible at following directions, so I'd have to return to try again tomorrow. Day 99 was the day I became a millionaire. I finally crossed the million G threshold for income, and it felt pretty good to get it before day 100. I went back to Simon Says immediately because I am a stubborn man, and I got the 3 walnuts on my first try thanks to an easy pattern. I went fishing on the farm's beach and caught a golden walnut and my first lionfish. Shortly after that, I had an unexpected reunion with my arch nemesis of the run. No, not that guy. The octopus. And this time, guys, I caught him. Needless to say, I was very happy. I decided to spend the rest of the afternoon on the island fishing and trying to secure all the fishing walnuts. In all, I got 2 golden animal crackers for my rabbits, 4 more golden walnuts, meaning I don't have to fish for any more, and I reached the next level of understanding. At 5 p.m. I teleported to the night market with a beach totem. I received a pearl from the mermaid show, then dove using the submarine to go fish up the spookfish, midnight squid, and the blobfish. I left with enough time to stop by the mastery room and claim mining mastery as well. I gave the 2 golden animal crackers I got yesterday to 2 of my rabbits early. Then I got my inventory together for today's to-do list. I brought some more gifts around town, I got to 10 hearts with Willie and Lewis, and then I accepted a new special order for Demetrius. This one requires me to fish at the mountain lake. I then went home to craft my first 3 heavy furnaces, and after that I bought 3 pigs for Marnie. I named them Bobby, Billy, and Buck. After that I headed to the mountain lake to do some fishing and ore smelting. By the end of the day I had a ton more coal for my charcoal kilns, and I got through smelting a bunch of iron and copper too. I caught plenty of fish and completed Demetrius' special order easily. Day 101 was the wizard's birthday, so I brought him a gold quality purple mushroom, and that was enough to get me up to 10 hearts with him. Next up, I talked to Shane and finished my friendship journey with him too. I headed to Clint's to pick up my steel pan and to drop off my axe for a much needed iridium upgrade. I then went to the caves to do some fishing, and I realized I forgot my heavy furnaces, so I went back home to quickly grab them. But I forgot that I had placed my charcoal kilns down before leaving. When I went back to floor 20, the kilns were gone. Oh boy. Oh well, I had to move on from it. So I crafted 5 more charcoal kilns and went back to business. I was able to fish up a stonefish after a few hours of fishing on floor 20, and then on floor 60 I managed to catch my first cave jelly and my first ice pit, leaving only the blue discus, stingray, scorpionfish, and the legend for me to catch. On the morning of day 102, I crafted my first iridium band and used my last 2 bars of iridium to craft a 5th crystallarium. I opened the mail and learned that my secret friend for this year's Feast of the Winter Star was Willy. I headed to the desert to harvest maple syrup and oak resin, and I placed a solar essence in the dragon skeleton's mouth, completing the mysterious Mr. Key questline. Found my new casino card in the woodshed back at the farm. I placed tappers on some more oak trees at the train station, and then I just power mined for copper and ran some charcoal kilns for the rest of the day at the mines. I harvested my first ancient fruit in the greenhouse on the morning of day 103, and I also harvested the fibers that I'd planted ages ago. Here's some sweet ASMR harvesting sounds for you. Today was a boring day, I just spent it grinding resources at the mines once again. Day 104 was Evelyn's birthday, so I brought her a silver quality beet, and I managed to finish my friendship journey with her as well. Next, I went to Clint's to get my iridium axe and to purchase some coal before he marks it up in year 2. I went to the train station tree farm where I cut down trees because I was getting a little short on wood for what I needed to do today. After that, I finally went to Ginger Island where I harvested another set of cranberries and quickly got to seed making the entire starfruit harvest. I planted roughly 400 starfruit seeds, and I also received 10 golden walnuts from the gourmand frog, showing him a pink melon and some wheat. The next morning, I was able to place my 120 bee houses. I also got a golden walnut from a mussel rock. Then I went to meet Leo for the first time. I then commissioned the island parrots to build the island trader's stand and to bridge to the dig site. I proved that highly caustic explosives can also save lives by uncovering the archaeologists stranded in the dig site cave. I grabbed this golden walnut, that one, and these 2, clearing out the available ones at the dig site. After that, I managed to cut down every tree that I had planted at the farm, and then I planted as many tree seeds as I could at the desert. Day 106, I checked the special order board and was very happy to find the prismatic jelly quest for the wizard. I took the order and then proceeded on a small gifting spree, and I went to Clint to drop off my pan for a gold upgrade. Then I headed to the mines to see if I could get lucky and complete this prismatic jelly quest, and I found an infested floor on floor 21. In the mines or in the Skull Cavern, each day if you find an infested floor, returning to that same floor reloads the infestation. This is useful because when the prismatic jelly quest is active, there's a 1.2% chance that any slime you find in the mines is going to be that prismatic slime. So on my 5th reroll of the level, I found the coveted prismatic slime, and I got the wizard's jelly. That was surprisingly easy for what is usually a very difficult quest. Since it was early enough to head to the desert, that's exactly what I did next. I brought Sandy a gift when I went, then I mined and fought monsters for the rest of the day. Day 107, I started off by gifting the same round of people. I hit max hearts with Haley and with Sam, and I also found a weird statue on the farm that I hear is a really unlikely drop on any given night, which is neat, I guess. I brought the wizard his prismatic jelly, and then I gifted Leia a rabbit's foot for her birthday. This got me to the end of my friendship journey with her as well. Here's another update on the friendship department. I'm really close to being done with this portion of the game if you consider that most of the villagers that are left will be finished up entirely when I give them their next birthday presents. I headed to Ginger Island after that, gave Leo a diamond as a gift, then I dug up some of the bones the archaeologist had been looking for. I donated those at the dig site tent, and then I answered the correct answers for the 2 island surveys, granting me 2 more golden walnuts. I entered the volcano for the first time and was rewarded in the first room with a golden walnut from a rock. After that, I got my first dragon tooth from a lava serpent, then got another golden walnut from a metal crate, and another one from slaying a monster. And that's going to be the last random walnut that I mentioned from being in the volcano, because I have another 14 to get here from random chances, and I think that's going to get a little repetitive if I tell you every single time I drop one. I then spent 5 walnuts to open the exit shortcut at the 5th level of the volcano, and I went to the dig site next, where I was pleasantly surprised to find another golden animal cracker, and a fossilized leg to donate to the dig site tent. On the morning of day 108, I found another golden walnut and a mussel cluster. Then I went to gift Marnie and also to purchase some hay for the silo, as well as 4 more pigs. I named them Peppa, Mayor Ham, Pinky, and Ted. Leia gifted me an interesting statue, so I put it next to the other interesting statue that I had. Then I opened my mail and was pleasantly surprised to find the Monster Musk recipe. You'll see why this is a very useful but self-inflicting tool shortly. I went to speak with Caroline and increased our friendship to max hearts. Once I got to the Skull Cavern, I was really doing great, but then, unfortunately, because the Monster Musk had ramped up the number of monsters I was facing, I got pinned by 2 serpents and passed out. I lost my blackberries that have single-handedly sustained me for over a month, and even worse, 3 mystery boxes that could be anything.
It could even be a boat!
I decided not to let it get me down, and I headed to the train station to take out any lingering frustration on some trees. After that, I took on a few more monsters in the lower mines because Monster Musk was still in effect, and I don't like wasting it. On the morning of day 109, I started things off with harvesting oak resin from the trees at the desert and the train station. I also stopped by to say hello to Sandy, getting me up to 10 hearts with her. I returned to Pelican Town with just enough time to make it to the Feast of the Winter Star, but I realized as I was greeting Willie that I'd accidentally left the diamond I'd meant to give him at home before coming to the feast. I stared blankly into the abyss for a brief moment, and then I decided just to give him a roots platter. He liked it, I think? Demetrius was my secret Santa, and he gifted me a beer. I mean, I guess he could have done worse, and I sold it. After the feast, I went and did some tree chopping at the train station to sate my wood addiction, reaching the 3rd level of understanding whilst doing so. Day 110, I gave Clint a birthday gift, maxing friendship out with him. Then I headed to the mastery room to claim foraging mastery. At home, I planted a few mystic tree seeds, which I would later regret planting here. Then I headed to Ginger Island. With the help of another Monster Musk, I was able to get a bunch more cinder shards and 2 more dragon teeth at the volcano today. I harvested my cranberries, my honey, and some coffee at the island farm. The honey sold for 100,000 G, which is great because I need to buy more pigs pronto. Day 111, I headed to the volcano for more dragon teeth grinding. I got really lucky with 1 serpent dropping 2, thanks burglar ring, and I got 3 in total before I decided to head home for the day. I got my gold pan from Clint, forced him to open a bunch of mystery boxes and 3 artifact troves for me, then gave him my hoe to upgrade to iridium. I went to the indecision statue in the sewer and turned 10,000 G into a foraging profession reroll. With not much for me to do at this point in the day, I decided to go around Cindersap Forest and plant as many trees as possible. I still was going to need a lot more wood than I currently have for my maniacal year 2 plan. At the end of the day, I chose the gatherer and botanist professions, ensuring that I'd always get iridium quality truffles once the pigs start producing in spring. The morning of day 112, while reviewing friendship progress, I realized that Willie didn't like that roots platter I gave him at the Feast of the Winter Star. I'd have to go give him a makeup gift to rekindle our flame. I grabbed a few diamonds and went to gift Willie, Marnie, and Krobus, all of whom I reached 10 hearts with. While I was at Marnie's, I bought 5 more pigs and named them Greg, Grog, Rug, Grag, and Steve. I also... So stupid. I also stopped by Robin's to ask her to build a fish pond because I still need to make a couple of caviar for shipping completion, and the Lost Bundle much later on. After that, I headed to Ginger Island to exchange 75 mussels for a mango sapling, which I subsequently planted. I spent the rest of the day at the volcano grinding for dragon's teeth. I sadly didn't get any, but I did finally get the Diamond Hunter book from the volcano dwarf. I chopped trees on the way home, hoping to get a golden coconut, and I dropped off a ruby, confirmed earlier by a bird sighting, at the monument next to Leo's hut. I also donated the mummified frog to the archaeologist. And ladies and gentlemen, that concludes... Of course I fuck up the last line. And ladies and gentlemen, that concludes year 1 of this disheveled yet functioning playthrough.
On the first day of year 2, I awoke at Ginger Island and went to gift Leo a rabbit's foot before warping home. There I met Kent for the first time. I spent almost the entire day just tidying up things at the farm. I actually forgot to let the pigs out until 1 PM because I was so preoccupied. I spent the night hours building an expanded pen for them,
and that should help with truffle rates. Day 114, I put a sturgeon in the finished fish pond, then I picked up another special order, this time to grow and ship 100 potatoes. I stopped by Pierre's to pick up some general spring seeds and the potato seeds, as well as a plethora of cooking ingredients I'll be needing for later. Then I went to the desert to pick up seeds from Sandy and to trade in 200 void essence with the desert trader for the void ghost pendant. I then went to Krobus to ask him a very important question. He said yes. We'll be a better pair than Finn and Jake, or Mordecai and Rigby. After that, I went around Cindersap Forest, chopping down some trees, and I stopped in the secret woods to grab a morel, which I forgot to ship in year 1. Day 115, I forgot to record, so here's me doing some interpretive dance to align with the notes I took for it. I gifted Kent a rabbit's foot. Then I went to Ginger Island and harvested the honey. I also planted some garlic. I took a monster musk to the volcano, and it was a lucky day with a luck blessing, so I found 4 dragon teeth today alone. I can smell that Ginger Island obelisk already. Day 116, I brought Kent another rabbit's foot. Then I stopped by Marnie's to pick up, wait for it, more pigs. I named them Swiggles, Giggles, Wiggles. Then I started thinking about soda and went with Mr. Pibb, Dr. Pepper. Then I got hungry and went with General Tsao. And finally, because I thought it was funny, I named one Dr. Evil. The last one I just called the janitor because every barn full of pigs needs a janitor. I went back to Ginger Island for the remainder of the day, and I made it to the forge at level 10 finally, granting me a couple more golden walnuts and a prismatic shard. I combined the burglar ring and the iridium band together, and I also enchanted my pickaxe. I ended up getting the swift enchantment, which is the best one I could have received. Day 117, I went to harvest the oak resin at the train station in the desert. Then I went to Ginger Island to harvest all the starfruit. And if I said I wasn't sweating profusely while trying to replant the entire plot before 2 a.m., I would be lying. I managed to get most of the plot filled in with starfruit. I just wish I had an extra 20 in-game minutes. Day 118, I finished up planting the rest of the starfruit, then warped home to check on the animals. I got 18 truffles today, which meant output was finally starting to ramp up. I seized the means of transportation by the bus stop and converted it into means of production instead. I placed 77 kegs out front and in the tunnel there. I finally was turning excess starfruit into wine, which is a big milestone for the run. I went back to the farm to grab the war memento so I could work on completing Birdie's quest. I gave the memento to Kent, who gave me some gourmet tomato salt for Gus, who gave me a Stardew Valley rose. The next day, Sandy traded me an advanced TV remote for the rose, and I traded in 135 jades for staircases. I brought George the advanced TV remote, and he gave me an Arctic shard. Then I went to Ginger Island to collect 5 golden walnuts from the Gourmand frog for showing him some
sensuous garlic.
Then, when harvesting the honey, I got my first golden coconut. On day 120, I harvested the 100 potatoes for that special order, then I planted 100 starfruit seeds in the greenhouse. After that, I headed to the wizard to give him the Arctic shard. He gave me the wriggling worm, very original. I purchased some originally named pigs from Marnie. I got Gina, Tina, Wilhelmina, Houdini, Chris Angel, Apu from the Quickie Mart, and Homer. I dropped off a gift to Kent, then took on a new special order, gifts for George. I'd have to collect 12 leeks for him this season. I went to Clint to crack the golden coconut, and I got a golden walnut out of it. Then I went to give Willie the wriggling worm, who gave me the final reward, a pirate's locket. I brought the pirate's locket to Birdie, receiving the fairy dust recipe and 5 golden walnuts as a reward. I traded in all the coconuts I had amassed for golden ones at the island trader before warping back to the beach. Back at Clint's, I received a banana sapling on the first crack. I also got the skull for the archaeologist's large skeleton. I then purchased the Galaxy Hammer from the Adventurers Guild finally for 75,000 G. And after that, I headed home to plant my oh-so-precious banana sapling in the greenhouse. Then, with not much time to spare, I was able to get a bus to the desert to do some much-needed landscaping. Day 121, I started out by chopping down all the trees at the main farm. I decided to go to the Skull Cavern to try and get some more mining resources. And that was a poor idea. I ended up passing out around midnight after getting swarmed by serpents. I drank a coffee and headed straight to the Adventurers Guild for the recovery service, where I was pleasantly surprised to learn that staircases can be recovered free of charge. Thank goodness. The next day, I harvested the first mystic syrup of many, which I decided to just drop in the shipping bin for completion's sake. I then headed to Marnie's to buy... I just named them Boris and Nikolai. I was getting tired of naming pigs. This finally rounded out my collection of 34 pigs. I noted how close I was to mastery level 4, and decided to try and squeeze out 2,000 XP from cutting down trees around the valley and foraging. Along the way, I grabbed my first fish smoker from Lewis's prize machine. Later on, reaching a plateau on what I could get XP with around the valley, I decided to head to the mines to try and power grind the last of my XP, where I passed out once again.
Although I got my butt handed to me in the mines, that didn't stop me from returning to reach that next level of understanding late at night. The morning of day 123, I headed to the mastery room to claim combat mastery so I could make that sweet, sweet mini forge. I warped to Ginger Island to harvest the honey, and I grabbed this golden walnut hiding in the corner of the farm beach over here. After that, I got another golden walnut from a mussel cluster, the final one I had to get from them. I purchased the resort from the parrots, allowing me to access the Pirate's Cove. In the new area that was opened up, I got this golden walnut and this one, and then I went into the cove and got this one tucked away over here. After that, I fished up my first stingray. Then I headed to the dig site to get my first blue discus. I donated the large animal skull that I received to the archaeologist. I panned at the dig site and got the fossilized tail for him too. At this point, I decided to finally enter the key room since I'd definitely reached 100 golden walnuts. Once I made it in, I stopped to take a look at my 100% progress. 43% of the way there isn't bad at all. That said, I still have a lot of work to do. I purchased the mailbox and the home warp obelisk at the island with my remaining golden walnuts. Then I teleported home. There, I did some inventory management before finally making my coveted mini forge. I went straight to forging the galaxy hammer, adding 2 rubies and an emerald for some extra DPS, and I enchanted it once, yielding the haymaker enchantment. By far the worst one. I really want to make this statue of the Dwarf King, but it takes 20 iridium bars, and currently I have 3. At the desert, I harvested the oak resin, and then I exchanged 27 rubies for spicy eel. Then I got into that cavern, baby. I began using staircases on pretty much every floor that wasn't immediately clearable, and I got down to a treasure room at floor 21 pretty quickly. There, I got a cherry sapling. On floor 26, I found my first trinket in a treasure chest, a golden spur. I get a speed boost for 7 seconds after landing critical hits, which isn't too bad. I wasn't finding much iridium yet, but once I got to about floor 50, things started heating up. Along the way to floor 70, I was getting very lucky with iridium node spawns. I headed home at floor 71 with a warp totem to the beach, and enough for me to make the statue of the Dwarf King. Unfortunately, I passed out at the front of the bus depot, meaning I'd be donating 1000 G to Harvey or one lucky vagrant tonight. Day 125 was much the same as the last. I harvested yesterday's truffles, went to the train station to get more oak resin, then starfruit wine, and then it was off to the desert. On floor 17 of the Skull Cavern, I got a sick multi-kill on some mummies that was very satisfying. I collected a bunch of iridium, and on floor 56 I even got a prismatic shard, which meant I could re-roll this painfully useless hammer enchant. By the end of the night, I had made it so far down in the Skull Cavern that squeezing out the extra iridium was worth passing out there. I managed to amass 150, which is another 30 bars worth. Day 126, I awoke to fresh iridium bars in my furnaces, and I had just enough to craft myself the statue of the Dwarf King. I re-enchanted my hammer with the extra shard, and this time I got vampiric, which is the second best option. I really would like to get artful, so I can just spam the smash ability, but vampiric could be useful for now. I crafted some master slingshot ammo and strapped my boots for another day at the Skull Cavern, where hopefully I'll be able to get enough iridium for almost the rest of the run in one shot. I did really well throughout the first 34 floors, and I found a couple of heavily populated Pepper Rex floors, which was great for the monster eradication goal. I got pretty far down, finding another prismatic shard along the way, and I managed to get another 128 iridium ore on top of the 75 that I had stockpiled. Day 127, I went to gift Ken. Then I stopped by Pierre's to spend too much money on grass starter that I desperately needed because my animals are fat as f***. I stopped by the special orders board and picked up one for Willy. He wants 100 bug meat, which won't be hard to procure at all. I went to gift the dwarf a topaz, then I teleported to give Leo an iridium duck feather, and to harvest more honey. After that, I warped home so I could make it to the desert festival in time to accept Willy's daily fishing challenge. I really just needed to fish up a scorpion carp for completion, which I got on my first cast, luckily. I also purchased a rare seed from the traveling cart that I'd be needing for shipping completion as well. At home, I re-enchanted my hammer again and got Crusader. I went ahead and planted the rare seed in my greenhouse, then I got to planting the grass starter that I purchased earlier. This design is something I just came up with. I have no idea if it's going to work, but hopefully keeping these lightning rods in a circle like this will keep the pigs from getting to the grass in the middle, which should allow the grass to spread at a faster rate to keep up with all the critters mowing it down. Hey, the money's at a funny number. Day 128 was a rainy day, meaning it was time for me to finally go after the final fishing challenge. But before that, I decided to finally bring some maple syrup to the secret woods. I got the bear's knowledge special power, then I headed straight to the mountain lake. It took me a little while to get the legend on the hook, but once I did, we had a manageable battle and I reeled him in, finally completing fishing mastery.
After that, I warped to the beach to fish up a couple of sardines and eels that I would need to get the cooking mastery later on. I purchased 3 void eggs from Krobus's chest in the sewer, then did a little bug exterminating in the sewer cave for Willie's special order. On the way home, I finally remembered to bring some hardwood to the stump in Cindersap Forest so I could get started on the raccoon quests, which I had been dragging my feet on. On the morning of day 129, I found a stardrop in my mailbox sent from Willie. It reminded me of that thing again. Although it isn't listed, my other favorite thing is subscribing. After that, I headed to the Desert Festival to at least participate in Gus's Cavern Challenge just once. This was a canon moment after all. I was doing pretty well, like super well. Then, this mummy right here took my health down to 0. Very quickly. That sucked, but before I headed home, I submitted my egg score to Gil, who was very impressed. Not as impressed as he could have been, but enough for him to bestow his hat upon me. A great honor. I decided it was time to switch out my trademark straw hat for Gil's, considering this my final evolution, the completion of my character arc. Day 130, I got funny number money again, this time twofold. The fish pond sturgeon requested a couple of maple syrup. I grabbed all the seed makers in the greenhouse. I was going to need them today. I headed to the raccoon at the newly repaired stump to pick up a fetch quest. Looks like he wants 5 mussels and a smoked flounder. Then I brought a rabbit's foot to the truck outside of the old Joja Mart so I could receive the lucky charm. I went to Ginger Island to harvest the Sea of Starfruit, and whilst doing so, I ended up getting to the final mastery level, completing my XP journey. I planted another cycle of starfruit seeds, then headed home with just enough time to make a stop at the Adventurers Guild and grab the Mapping Cave Systems book, which I've neglected to retrieve for literally months. Day 131, I awoke to find my first sturgeon roe, coincidentally. I immediately placed it in a preserves jar to make caviar. Then I headed to the beach to fish up a flounder for my furry friend. After that, I headed back to Ginger Island to see the rest of the starfruit and to harvest the honey. I smoked the flounder and another fish so I could complete the shipping requirement for a smoked fish. Then I headed back home to deliver the mussels and smoked flounder to the raccoon. He gave me 25 carrot seeds as a reward. Gee, thanks. I went to the mastery room to claim fishing mastery and the advanced iridium fishing rod. It looks like I made Grandpa proud. I then headed to the sewer cave to farm some more bug meat for Willie's special order. After that, I bought the triple shot espresso recipe from Gus. I then headed to the mines to farm some copper and more bug meat. On day 132, I finally got my wife, Krobus, up to a high enough friendship level to earn a star drop, the second to last one. This leaves only the museum star drop left to be secured, but before I can discuss that, there's a great endeavor that I must outline right now. Green screen shift?
Thanks, voiceover Shift. So today is going to be the beginning of a little plan I like to call Operation Spurg Out and make as much money as humanly possible before the end of fall. Or, for short. I probably could have come up with a shorter name, but most of my brain power is being devoted to 100%ing this game. I need to plant 600 fiber seeds here, today, to make sure that I have enough tilled soil at the beginning of summer for all the starfruit that I need to plant. The plan is to hopefully leave the fibers on spring 28th into summer 1, so that when I come out I can just scythe them and all the soil is already watered and tilled for me to just plant my plethora of 600 starfruit seeds. So now I'm going to attempt to craft 600 fiber seeds. Oh no, Shift. It looks like I'm missing clay.
Okay, today I went to Clint to crack open every geode I own. And after a lengthy marathon of that, I ended up with 11 clay. Bright side, I did open 5 artifact troves, and one of them yielded the Treasure Appraisal Guidebook, one of the last books that I needed. I decided to drop off all the new artifacts and gems that I could at the museum, then I booked it to the mines. It was time to put my hoe and some explosives to work. It took most of the day, but by 10 p.m. I was able to source all the clay I'd need from just reloading floors 21 and 23 over and over again. I headed to Willie's to drop off all the bug meat I had collected, then I went home to craft the aforementioned 600 fiber seeds and, hold your chair, 75 quality sprinklers. I started off day 133 by harvesting the greenhouse starfruit and starting another cycle. After that, I spent most of the day preparing the plot of 600 tiles and planting the fiber seeds. My cat Frank, who hasn't been mentioned yet, had a little nap on the bottom corner of my plot, so I gently nudged him out of my way to finish off planting the seeds. I had just enough time left over to seed all the starfruit I had picked, but it looks like I'm just gonna miss that 600 seed mark that I wanted to hit, which is okay, 562 will be plenty. Day 134, I found the first iridium rabbit's foot in my coop of many. I headed to the train station to harvest some oak resin, then went to gift the dwarf a topaz. After that, I went to town and hit the bookseller. I bought Horse, the book, despite not having a horse. I also was able to purchase the Queen of Sauce cookbook and the Stardew Valley almanac as well. I snagged a tea leaf from Caroline's Happy Place, then I brought Kent another rabbit's foot. I went to the desert to harvest more oak resin there, then I headed home to place those tea leaves from earlier in a keg. Then I took on the Curious Substance special order from the Special Orders board. This one requires me to find and kill ghosts in hopes of getting an ectoplasm drop from them. I submitted another prize ticket to Lewis's wacky machine, which spat out 4 artifact troves. Neat. I brought them to Clint for quick cracking. I received 1 new artifact and brought it to the museum. At Ginger Island, I brought Leo a rabbit's foot, then I decided to take the Keys Prismatic Grange quest. I spotted an emerald bird on the island farm thanks to the rain, giving me another free space on the Gem Altar mini quest. I went to the Pirates Cove front entrance and serenaded the mermaid there in exchange for 5 golden walnuts. Next, I headed to the Gem Altar in Leo's jungle and managed to guess the correct gems on my first try for another 5 golden walnuts. I went mining at the volcano to try to get the mummified bat to drop, and with barely any time to spare on the day, I did. I brought it to the archaeologist, who kindly gave me another golden walnut. And then I teleported home with enough time to ship some fresh green tea and make it to bed. The next day, I harvested and sold the caviar for shipping completion. I crafted some treasure tomes for later, then headed to the dwarf to give him his last gift, because this one got me up to 10 hearts with him. Since I took on Key's Prismatic Grange, I needed red items. It wasn't too cheap, but 45,000 G for 100 cherry bombs will have to do to satisfy the red requirement, because I missed salmonberry season. I have 100 sap, 100 copper ore, 100 plant fibers, and 100 void essence for the yellow, orange, green, and purple requirements too. Now I just need 100 blue items. I went to Pierre's to harvest another set of tea leaves from Caroline's room for shipping completion. Then I bought 10 garlic seeds from Pierre as well. I also bought the grass starter and dehydrator recipes. I brought Kent yet another rabbit's foot, then went home and crafted my first iridium sprinkler for later. At the Stardrop Saloon, I tested my rhythm skills and purchased 100 Joja Colas at Gus's Joja vending machine. I brought Leo another rabbit's foot, then planted the garlic seeds next to my snazzy new iridium sprinkler. I harvested my honey and made some more coffee while I was on the island. I deposited the prismatic grange in the key room, and I was rewarded with my first 35 key gems. I used 2 treasure totems on the farm beach, and I was able to get the snake skull as well as 2 snake vertebrae that I needed for the archaeologist. I found a second fossilized leg right away at the dig site. Then I fished until I found the fossilized spine. I submitted all the bones to the archaeologist, who rewarded me with the ostrich incubator recipe as well as 9 more golden walnuts. The morning of day 136, I found the super meal recipe in the mail, sent kindly by Kent. I switched out the sturgeon in the fish pond with squid because I'll be needing squid ink later on for a couple of recipes and for shipping completion. On floor 5 of the skull cavern, I found another prismatic shard doing some trick shots on a serpent with a slingshot. And let me say, that must have been a good omen because this was one of the smoothest and luckiest skull cavern runs I've had in the entire playthrough. I found a bunch of shafts in the cavern, allowing me to skip tons of floors. Then on floor 79, I found another prismatic shard. I was so close to floor 100, I decided to power down there with the staircases I had just so I could meet Key and get the permanent health buff from the snake milk. I had just enough time to head home and close up the animals. I didn't get a ghost to drop any ectoplasm, unfortunately, though, so I'd have to return tomorrow. I went to the wizard with 20 iridium bars, coconuts, and cactus fruit in tow, and I shelled out 1 million G to finally purchase the desert obelisk. I headed straight to the desert after that, and around floor 13 of the cavern, I ate a magic rock candy that I'd stashed from the desert festival. The very next floor, I got the ectoplasm to drop from a ghost. I spent the rest of the day just gathering resources and slaying monsters in the cavern. On floor 56, I found yet another prismatic shard, and to cap off the day, I got a second one on the very last iridium node I crushed. Day 138, I awoke and I crafted a second iridium band now that I had so much of it lying around. Then I combined it in the forge with a glowstone ring for some added magnetism. I stopped by Robin to upgrade the farmhouse another level, then I brought the wizard his ectoplasm. I checked the raccoons for my next quest. They asked for some dried coconuts and some hot pepper jelly. After that, I headed to Pierre to give him a birthday present, getting 10 hearts with him finally. I headed to Ginger Island next, where I found Gus at the resort bungalow, and I purchased the tropical curry recipe. I then went to the volcano to do some cinder shard grinding. At the Volcano Dwarf, I purchased the Island Warp Totem recipe, as well as the Ginger Ale recipe. Then I decided to head to the Pirates Cove for some darts. I finished the third game with a perfect match, getting to 301 in just 7 throws, and that was 3 more golden walnuts for me. Back at home, I planted a handful more mystic tree saplings. Day 139, I awoke to the mini obelisk recipe in my mailbox. I made my first dehydrator as well, but then realized I didn't have enough coconuts for the raccoon's request quite yet. I set a pepper in a preserves jar to get some hot pepper jelly processing. I found the 12th leek that I needed for George at the bus stop and delivered them to Evelyn per her special order. I submitted another prize ticket at Lewis's for another meager reward, then headed to Ginger Island to harvest the honey. I also cut down a few palm trees for some extra coconuts. At the volcano, I paid 5 golden walnuts to the parrots to build a bridge across the lava. I farmed another 40 cinder shards while I was there, then I warped home to pass out on my nice and cozy front porch. On day 140, I got the coffee maker from Evelyn, which is a great daily boost. I sold my first set of raisins from the dehydrator, clearing that from shippables completion. Then I placed 5 coconuts in there to dry. I stopped by the traveling cart because
I'm doing something!
and then I farmed some mahogany seeds at the secret woods. In the process, I found the final secret note. At Ginger Island, one of my favorite cutscenes with Leo and Linus and Willie played. They discuss Leo coming to Pelican Town, and it always makes my heart warm to see this part where the mama parrot comes down and tells Leo she's happy for him. So sweet. One of the few cutscenes I don't automatically skip in this game. Anyways, back to neurodivergence. I went straight to the volcano to do some sweaty cinder shard. Say that 10 times fast. I went straight to the volcano to continue doing some sweaty cinder shard grinding. After a very successful day there, in which I garnered 60 cinder shards, I decided to exchange 50 of them for the deluxe retaining soil recipe, and while there, I decided to also purchase the banana pudding cooking recipe as well. I warped home, organized my inventory, and this time made it to bed on time. That night, the parrots made a new treehouse for Leo next to Linus's tent in the mountains. On the morning of the first day of summer, I harvested my first squid ink from the fish pond. I then decided to try my luck at enchanting my hammer, so I used another prismatic shard. Okay, third time's the charm.
They ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine.
Moving on, I harvested the plant fibers. Please enjoy the ASMR for a moment. And I planted the starfruit seeds that I'd been hoarding to this point. After that, I headed to the mountain to request another house upgrade from Robin. I then headed to the Adventurers Guild to see how I was doing on monster eradication progress. I was really close to getting nearly everything done, except for Void Spirits. I found the Fragments of the Past challenge for Gunter on the Special Orders board. I found plenty of Void Spirits hiding in the mines, and some bats as well for some much-needed bat wings. On floor 100, I decided to fish because I need a cave jelly for the fish smoker crafting recipe. I got a lava eel on my first cast, so I decided to hang on to it to switch out with the squid in the fish pond when the time comes. After fishing up the cave jelly, I went home to harvest the hot pepper jelly for the raccoons. They rewarded me with the raccoon journal. I read the book just before bed, finally granting me the well-read achievement for having read every single book. On day 142, I sold some dried blackberries for shipping completion. The fish pond squid requested some coral. Then I found a prismatic butterfly at the bus depot on the way to Pierre's. Yay, money! I waited outside Pierre's for him to open like a new Call of Duty was dropping. At 9 a.m. sharp, I ran to the register, bought the seeds I needed, and teleported straight to Ginger Island. At the island, I harvested my coffee and my garlic, planted some red cabbage and a radish for cooking completion needs later, then headed to the parrots to ask them to do their final task, assemble the Parrot Express. I visited the key room to exchange my remaining golden walnuts for key gems and to see what challenges were on tap for today. I decided to go with the Junimo Cart challenge, despite never having played the game before this point. How hard could it be, I thought? I was about to find out. I decided to purchase the bluegrass starter recipe. I worked back home and went straight to work on planting some of it in the pig pen. After that was finished, I headed to the saloon to get my game on. Jesus, did I really write that? I sound like my mother. How lame am I? After my first 10 minutes, I started to get the hang of it, but this was a much taller task than I had realized. I got up to 15k score early on at one point and wondered how difficult it would really be to get 50k.
One eternity later.
I finally got the 50k run after 6 real-life hours of gameplay, and of course a day between runs because I was so exhausted in my first sit-down that I literally could not finish the challenge without sleeping IRL. I literally never want to play Junimo Card again. Anyways, I finally was able to say goodnight to the real-life longest day in this entire run. Thanks, Junimo Cart! On day 143, I shipped some dehydrated mushrooms for shipping completion. I crafted 8 more seed makers, planted another spot of blue grass, and let the animals out. Then I went straight to Ginger Island. There, I spent the entire day harvesting and replanting the starfruit plot. I stopped halfway through to harvest and sell the day's honey, and once the plot was reseeded, I went home to fertilize the remaining spots at the home farm with some added speed grow, so they'll be ready to harvest at the same time as the other 500 I had planted here. To cap off the day, I crafted 75 more kegs, then placed them in the tunnel behind the bus stop. I barely had enough time to place them and start a full batch of starfruit, so I passed out at the bus stop at 2 a.m. sharp. On day 144, I crafted 7 more crystallariums for rubies because I was starting to run low on spicy eel, and I must have the zoom. I went to the desert to exchange some diamonds for espresso, perhaps the most expensive espresso on planet Earth. I went to the dig site to get some bone fragments for Gunter's special order. At level 1 of the volcano, I completed the magma sprite monster eradication goal. Then, on level 2, I also completed the slime monster eradication goal. Day 145 was rainy and gloomy. I found some squid ink in the fish pond, then I emptied out the pond and placed the lava eel in there. I checked out the traveling cart because, again,
I'm doing something!
and I was once again disappointed. I decided to do some preliminary cleanup and organizing of the section of land below the pig pen on the farm. I returned with some kegs and flooring that I'd be needing for the next batch of starfruit coming from the greenhouse tomorrow. I went to the desert after that to harvest some wood. I dug up a desert-exclusive artifact, then I headed to the quarry to grab a few more resources that were building up there. Day 146, I checked my animal friendship progress, and the pigs were coming along really nicely. I harvested the starfruit in the greenhouse, then set them to ferment in the new keg array. I planted another 100 starfruit seeds, then headed to Ginger Island island after that. I found a rainbow shell at the beach that I would need later for shipping completion. At the island, I went to the dig site to collect the last few bone fragments needed to complete Gunter's special order. I then spent the rest of the day and the night in the volcano defeating monsters and grinding resources. At the day's end, I gawked at how frequently I was pulling 50 or more truffles now that the pigs' collective friendship is so high. It's nice to watch the money pour in now that I've done all the work to get them all situated. The next day, I set up some preserves jars for lava eel roe. After that, I dropped off the 100 bone fragments at the museum, completing Gunter's special order. Then I donated some artifacts that I had saved up, granting me the 7th rare crow, the second to last one. I went to Clint to crack some of my stored up geodes and mystery boxes, and I ended up getting some decent items to sell, but no new artifacts, unfortunately. I also got a prismatic shard, which is always nice. I submitted another prize ticket at Lewis's machine to receive my second stardrop tea, which I immediately gifted to Kent. I then warped to Ginger Island and harvested the honey as well. I got lucky at the volcano and managed to get my third to last journal scrap right away with a mega bomb on level 1. On level 7, I got the second to last journal scrap, the one I'd needed to find my first ostrich egg. The next morning, I found the bone mill crafting recipe in the mail. I finally got my first banana from the greenhouse. I enchanted my hammer with that prismatic shard I got yesterday, and finally got artful. I was very happy about this. Look at how quickly I can slam this thing now. I warped to the desert to restock on spicy eel, and after that, I came home to make an ostrich incubator. I also crafted probably too many bone mills to grind up all the bones I've been saving into useful materials. I brought an iridium quality orange to Gus for his birthday. This got me up to 10 hearts with him finally. I checked out the special order board. I decided to take Willie's tropical fish request. On the way to Ginger Island, I decided to spend 10,000 G on the fish smoker recipe from Willie. On Ginger Island, I pulled a radish that I would later need for a cooking recipe. After that, I went to the key room to pick up a new challenge and got my favorite one, Skull Cavern Invasion. I decided to spend today going for the tropical fish special order for Willie. I was able to fish up 5 stingray, 5 blue discus, and 5 lionfish before the end of the day. I also stopped by the spot marked by journal scrap number 10 to grab one of the last golden walnuts I can get, and my first ostrich egg. Back at home, I placed the ostrich incubator in barn 1 and set the egg to incubate. I then harvested all the bone mill resources and prepped my inventory for a sweaty skull cavern run the next day. The morning of day 149, I wanted to get to the desert as quickly as possible, but Willie sent me a big aquarium for completing his challenge yesterday, so I scrambled for a bit inside trying to find the most out-of-the-way place for it. I then had to face a very unfortunate truth in the first barn. Tom Brady needed to be retired. She served us well for many seasons, giving us the goat's milk and cheese that I needed for shipping completion, but unfortunately, I had a newcomer on the way with my ostrich egg incubating, and that meant Tom Brady would need to be released. Good night, sweet prince. Jokes aside, I had business to attend to. In the dangerous skull cavern, I immediately got lucky and found my first bits of radioactive ore on level 5. I was very quickly getting nickeled and dimed by monsters early on though, and I almost forgot how dangerous these mines are. I got down to floor 39 relatively quickly, gathering more radioactive ore and iridium along the way. This was a Pepper Rex floor, which was great because it allowed me to complete that monster eradication goal. I received an auto grabber out of a chest on floor 61, and after using 76 staircases to get down to floor 100, I was rewarded with 40 key gems and another crystallarium from a chest. I managed to get just enough radioactive ore to smelt in my heavy furnace, as well as plenty of iridium. To start the day out, I sold my first radioactive ore as well as my first iridium bar since it was no longer a tight commodity for me. I enchanted my fishing rod and got the preserving enchantment. I also sold a radioactive bar for shipping completion once that was finished smelting in the furnace. I found the prismatic butterfly outside of the bus depot again, which was another free 50,000 G. I went to the train station tree farm to grab some more oak resin. I then stumbled upon something I legitimately have never seen before. I genuinely don't know what this capsule is, but it's doing the animation like something is cooking in there, so I decided to leave it. Science, I guess? I gave the lava eels 3 fire quartz. Then I went to harvest the first big batch of starfruit wine, for which I subsequently crafted a ton of casks and set to age in the basement. I then went to the desert where I gathered some more oak resin and traded some rubies for more spicy eel. I also purchased the desert warp totem recipe for 10 iridium bars. I then used the deluxe speed grow that I got from the bone mills on all the soil in the greenhouse to speed up starfruit production there. Day 151, I decided to plant all the fruit saplings that I had been hoarding in the greenhouse for the sake of maximizing revenue. The sweet gemberry was finally finished, so I sold that for shipping completion as well. I decided to chop down nearly every tree I could in Cindersap Forest. After that, I warped Ginger Island with a totem and harvested the honey. From there, I headed home to harvest truffles and to store the 3.5 stacks of wood I'd gathered. I crafted another 10 crystallariums, placing 5 outside and 5 inside because my front yard was starting to look like a Florida man's driveway. On day 152, I found a void egg in my coop and struggled through figuring out which tile is the incubator while Mrs. Shiftesque laughed at me. I'm scared I may not hit the money goal by the time I want to, so I am prepping this unused space over here on the farm for a proper mushroom log farm. Basically, the goal is to have each of these empty spaces be filled in with a mushroom log. I'm going with flooring everywhere to alleviate trees spreading as much as possible because once they're grown, it's going to be very difficult for me to actually see what's going on here. And I also sold a batch of starfruit wine today, which is going to get me really close close to the 2 million G that I need for that Ginger Island obelisk very soon. Day 153 was Alex's birthday, so I brought him an iridium quality rabbit's foot, maxing out friendship with him. I also brought Kent a second Stardrop tea, getting him to max hearts as well. I then went to the mines to do some clay grinding on floors 21 to 23, and to do some iron grinding on floor 40. Day 154 was the green rain day, so I spent the entire day swiping my scythe all around the valley. I had to pick the farm plot of 600 starfruit early. I was able to go through pretty much every moss cluster and plant fiber in the valley right after, and I managed to scrape together 377 moss, which is enough for me to make 37 mushroom logs. The green rain grew nearly every tree in the mushroom log layout, meaning I could start using it as soon as tomorrow. The morning of day 155, I met my new ostrich who hatched overnight. I named her Ozzy. I spent the morning prepping the farm plot for the next crop of starfruit. I had to warp to Ginger Island and seed them there. Then I headed to the west of the island to harvest the honey and to pick up a new key challenge. This time I went for the Keys Kindness challenge, which shouldn't be too hard now that I've hoarded up a bunch of rabbit's feet. I planted the 600 starfruit seeds at home, then started working on getting the remaining 300 starfruit fermenting into wine. I crafted an additional 35 kegs and finished off the home farm array of 125, as well as the bus depot array of 175, totaling out at 300. It was about midnight, and I decided I had just enough time to craft 32 mushroom logs for the west side of the farm. I was immediately reminded of just how difficult it is to see when under so many trees, especially at night, but I had just enough time to get all 32 logs placed, and to make it to bed before 2 a.m. Day 156, my Ginger Island starfruit was ready to harvest. I used a warp totem to get there as fast as possible, since I'd need every minute. I crunched the layout and got just enough space for 681 seeds. It was a sweaty affair, but by 1:10 a.m., I finished planting the last seed. I didn't even have time to zoom out and show you. I warped home and Jesus, truffles! The pigs created a full-on truffle blockade, and closing them up took just that much longer. The next morning, I harvested some more bananas and starfruit in the greenhouse. I got my inventory together for a gifting spree and headed around town to do my best impression of Santa Claus. Along the way, I stopped by the special orders board and took on Robin's resource rush. By the end of the day, I managed to give out 32 gifts. I spent the remainder of the day chopping down some trees before making a quick stop at Ginger Island to seed some starfruit so I could get the greenhouse reseeded right before bed. The next day I switched out all of the fire quartz crystallariums with diamonds so I could start replacing all the copious amounts of espresso that I drink on a daily basis. I then finally started to move some of the lightning rods in the pig pen inwards so the animals could get a taste of the bluegrass that I'd been growing all this time. I cut down all the trees on the main farm other than the mushroom log trees, of course. Then I entered the chicken coop and named my new void chicken. In the spirit of monster-ness, I named him Krobus Jr. After that, I went around the valley chopping trees until I completed the special order for Robin. I also grabbed the oak resin at the train station. I finally gave the last Keys Kindness gift around 8 p.m. to the wizard, giving me a 40 key gem reward. I decided to spend the remainder of the night with some treasure totems going for some of the artifacts that I was still missing. I got skunked at the mountain, but at the beach I managed to get 3 of them. In the morning I found mango sticky rice recipe in the mailbox, the final recipe I needed. I also got the stone chest recipe from Robin for completing her resource rush order. I crafted some tree fertilizer and some dehydrators and then got right to work on harvesting mushrooms. I checked out the traveling cart and stopped by the wizard to build the Ginger Island obelisk. And I forgot the iridium. So I headed back home to grab it. And after purchasing the obelisk, I went to Ginger Island to harvest the honey and to farm some bone fragments at the dig site. I'm gonna need these for deluxe speed grow very soon. Next, I went to the desert to harvest all the moss growing on the tapped trees and to switch out the oak resin taps with maple syrup ones. I tried out a treasure totem here and managed to get 2 more artifacts. After that, I decided tonight was a perfect night for some child-friendly gambling. So I blasted the guard at the Desert Rose with my exclusive club card and gained entry to the casino for the first time. I purchased some tokens, then checked my file at the character file checker. What are the odds that I would roll 222,222 steps? I went straight to high stakes blackjack where each hand costs 1,000 coins, and lost immediately.
21!
Hit me.
Peter.
Hit me.
That's 30.
Hit me.
I then decided to purchase 1,000 more key coins because I wasn't ready to give up on my first hand. The last rare crow I need is 10,000 key coins, and I'm not leaving this place without it. And I busted again. I then decided to purchase 4,000 more coins to give myself a shift being stupid cushion. Hey, I won! And I lost the next hand. I played a few more rounds and determined that I wanted to go home with a shirt on tonight, so in the spirit of RNG-based children's gambling games, I just flat out purchased the key coins I needed for the rare crow. Ladies and gentlemen, gentlemen, say hello to the first 150,000 G scarecrow you've ever seen. I really hope this doesn't make hitting my money goal for the run much harder. I warped home to close up the animals and cry about how bad I am at blackjack. The following morning, I received a letter from the ZC Rarecrow Society, rewarding me with the deluxe scarecrow recipe for my dedication to the collection of rarecrows. Spending money. And on the topic of spending money, I realized this morning that I had run out of hay. I went to purchase a full restock from Marnie, and while I was in Cindersap Forest, I also put some tappers on some maple trees there. I headed to the mountains to purchase all remaining purchasable crafting recipes from the dwarf and Robin. I then went to the quarry to do some artifact grinding with treasure tomes, and was pleasantly surprised to find one of the ones I was missing from a random spot. Unfortunately, 4 treasure tomes later, and I still didn't get either of the last 2 remaining ones. To cheer myself up, I decided to head to Ginger Island and submit a banana to the gorilla pedestal in Leo's forest. This earned me the last 3 golden walnuts of the run, another portion of 100% neatly finished. I went home to buy Krobus's shop recipes, and to use the last 2 treasure totems I had crafted in Cindersap Forest. Unfortunately, I was disappointed yet again, so I defiantly made more and went back to the forest to try once more, which also turned out to be a dud. I would have to cope with not yet having found all the artifacts. For now. In the morning, I went to the traveling cart and still couldn't find the one item I had been desperately looking for. I then picked up the prize ticket and submitted it at Lewis's for some more Omni Geodes, which I pooled with my already sizable stack to go trade at the Desert Trader. While there, I exchanged my rubies and my jades for spicy eel and more staircases. I decided since today was a particularly lucky day that I would spend it in the Skull Cavern. On floor 33, I managed to finish the rock crab goal, and on floor 52, I finished the serpent goal, and I also found a prismatic shard in an iridium node. I got to floor 120 with a sizable amount of resources, and decided to leave the cavern to trade in all the diamonds that I had found for more triple shot espressos. The morning of day 162, I cleaned up my inventory, and then I decided to switch out the golden spur trinket that I had been rolling with for a level 4 parrot egg that I had found in the cavern. I also shipped a banana, leaving only 3 more shippable items to send for 100%. And now that she was fully grown, I gave a golden animal cracker to Ozzy. In the process of harvesting the starfruit wine, I accidentally put 35 starfruit into dehydrators instead of in kegs. Annoying. I moved the dehydrators and carried on harvesting wine at the bus depot. Then I went to the museum for artifact donation. I finally donated a prismatic shard, completing all mineral donations, and I submitted all the artifacts I had found within the last week, leaving only those final 2 that I had left remaining. I felt like I could maybe get lucky and get them from the artifact troves I had purchased, but unfortunately, I didn't. I decided to head to the mines to do some more iron grinding, because I took a repeat special order for Clint to slay 50 dust sprites. I also made a pit stop at the key room to pick up a new challenge, or I guess a repeat challenge because it was the dangerous Skull Cavern one again. I managed to finish Clint's special order by 1 AM, and I got a ton of coal and extra bonus money from my new trinket in the process. At the end of the day, thanks to the starfruit wine I sold, I got to appreciate what it looks like to make a million G all at once. In the morning, I used a prismatic shard to enchant my axe, and I got shaving. Also, whatever was in this, thing looks like it broke out, so I decided to add the remaining capsule to the place where I keep weird statues. It looks okay there. Anyways, I crafted another treasure totem and some monster musks. Then I went to let the animals out. I found my first ostrich egg in the barn and shipped it, meaning I only have to sell an eggplant and a fairy rose to get 100% shipping completion from here. I harvested the mushrooms, then made sure to place the dehydrators further away from the keg array. Then I went to the quarry to use 3 more treasure totems, but the 2 artifacts I need still remained unfound. I then established some charcoal kilns at the mine for the purpose of grinding coal, while also grinding the void spirit eradication goal. But since it was so close to the end of the day, I returned home to craft some crystallariums instead of starting work on that. Day 164 was a very lucky day, so I planned to go to the Skull Cavern. I crafted 5 more crystallariums, and then I headed straight to the desert. It was around floor 17 that I realized maybe bringing a monster musk with me wasn't the best idea. Around floor 46, I determined that it was downright stupid. Nearly every floor in this place was absolutely crawling with monsters, and despite there being a lot of iridium and radioactive ore for me to find, I couldn't safely get to any of it. Using the term pervasive to describe the number of monsters down here would be an understatement. On floor 60, I did manage to get the monster eradication goal done for bats, and while I was moving through the cavern to floor 100 somewhat quickly, every floor felt like another risk of dying. I made it to floor 100 at about 8 PM and was rewarded with my 40 key gems and 15 cherry bombs. Was it worth it? Absolutely not. I ended up with another 27 radioactive ore and some severe bruising. I went to floor 101 to see if I could grind out some more useful resources, but I was punished by the Stardew gods for my greed and subsequently passed out. I decided to spend the rest of my day in the regular mines grinding out void spirits and restoring some of my confidence. My lava eels wanted a basalt. Today was a bookseller day, so I brought all my extra books to town to trade for useful things, primarily 3 monster musks and a bunch of coal. I used 3 more treasure totems at the quarry and still did not get the ancient sword or the bow bone flute. I decided to blow off some steam in the mines by farming more void spirits with a monster musk on. I checked the traveling cart early and did some moss gathering until Marnie opened. I bought a new hay restock from her, then went to gift Leo an iridium rabbit's foot for his birthday, completing friendship mastery for all villagers officially. I harvested the greenhouse starfruit and went to Ginger Island to seed them and grab some more bone fragments from the dig site. After that, I went home to plant another batch of 100 starfruit in the greenhouse. Then I spent the rest of the day grinding void spirits in the mines. I went to Ginger Island and brought a dozen more bee houses to increase passive revenue here. I then entered the key room to buy all the exclusive crafting recipes. Back on the mainland, I sprayed a monster musk on and went back to the mines to finally finish up the monster eradication goal for void spirits, granting me full monster eradication completion. I also finally claimed some rewards from Gil, and I decided it would be a good idea to add the napalm ring to my iridium band for future Skull Cavern runs. I then crafted an anvil finally for 50 whole iron bars. Good thing I only need to make one of these. I brought the raccoons some dried purple mushrooms and white algae per their request, then I checked out the traveling cart. After being disappointed by her wares yet again, I decided to air my frustration on all the trees in the valley. I also just needed wood. I then went home to craft some tree fertilizer and some more tappers. I harvested all the starfruit and then tried to warp to the desert. I was on a real time crunch today, and warping to Ginger Island by accident didn't exactly help. I decided to close up the animals and do some truffle harvesting, and to harvest all the finished starfruit wine from my kegs. I set today's starfruit harvest in the farm and bus depot kegs, and I got to the desert by 10 p.m. to trade for more staircases and espresso. I then had just enough time to get all the new taps that I had crafted placed on the oak and maple trees here. I ran out of time planting extra pine trees for wood though. I'll have to come back in fall to finish covering the place in pine cones. I sold nearly 200 starfruit wine, and I also made some good income from truffles today, getting me another 700,000 G closer to my golden clock goal. Day 169 was the first day of fall, and another starfruit harvest day, this time at Ginger Island. I went there early after harvesting the mushrooms, and I brought all my oak resin and bone fragments with me. After processing enough seeds from that crop, I decided to craft as much deluxe fertilizer as possible. It wasn't enough for the entire plot, but it was close. I had 600 tiles worth of sprinkler coverage that was being unused on the main farm, and something about walking between these sprinklers without something growing here was bugging me. So I headed to Pierre's to buy 600 pumpkin seeds. I also bought an eggplant seed, 4 fairy rose seeds, and a bok choy. I stopped by the special orders board and finally got the island ingredients request for Caroline. At the home farm, I worked on preparing the large plot of 600 tiles and got spring year 1 war flashbacks, having to water everything here.
Now, at this point, you may be saying, Shift, you're seriously neglecting keg capacity if you plan to grow this many pumpkins and this much starfruit all at once. To which I say,
Yes, I am.
but now that most everything is done for 100%, I have plenty of time to grind all those resources out and make sure that I get all the kegs I need. So that's what I'm going to do as my main focus for the next couple of weeks. And now that you've made it this far in the video, I can finally tell you what my goal for 100% is. Obviously, the key tracker doesn't capture full 100%. I want to get every achievement in the game, but just to make sure I get 100% by the means of the key tracker, I'd like to do so by the end of fall. Unfortunately, I made a mistake in the past. I sold my last snow yam, and so I don't have a snow yam to craft winter seeds with. So, the only way to get a snow yam is to hope that the traveling cart has one, and if she doesn't, then I won't be able to finish 100% by fall 28. In which case, I'll use a treasure totem, and I'll at least get it by winter 1. But let's hope that that doesn't happen.
Day 171, I crafted some more bee houses and got all my golden coconuts together early. I then went to the desert and around the valley to plant as many trees as I could, because I was starting to run dangerously low on wood again. I then went to Ginger Island to trade some coconuts for golden coconuts and to harvest my honey. I placed my new bee houses as efficiently as possible, then went home for bed. I brought the golden coconuts to Clint the following day, and I didn't get any pineapple seeds. Oh boy. The next best way to get them is to farm magma caps and defeat monsters at the volcano, so that's where I went next. I was able to find lots of magma caps and pineapple seeds there, thankfully. I passed out at 2 a.m. on floor 9 of the volcano. The next morning, I went home to let the animals out. I also restocked the hay, and I also was disappointed at the traveling cart. I made another monster musk for later at the volcano. There, I got pretty lucky and found 5 pineapple seeds in a chest on level 1, and another 5 on a second chest in the same level. I was getting overwhelmed by monsters later in the volcano, but I powered through and got 5 more pineapple seeds from another chest, getting me by then up to exactly 50 seeds. Day 174, I was feeling restless for some artifacts, so I went straight to the forest and used a treasure totem to try and get the last 2. I ended up getting the ancient sword, finally, meaning I only have 1 artifact left to get. The bone flute. I took a moment to check the animal friendship, and almost all 34 of my pigs now have 5 hearts, and I'm pulling anywhere from 60 to 70 truffles a day because of it. I went to Ginger Island to exchange the magma caps for the remaining pineapple seeds I needed. Then it was off to the mines to do some Frozen geode grinding? I know, it sounds silly at this point in the run, but for crafting completion, I actually need a piece of marble for this marble brazier? Brazier? Brazier?
Brazier.
Yeah, that. And frozen geodes have a 1 in 30 chance to drop marble. Much better than omni geodes, so that's what I'll be going for. I went to the train station to add some more oak resin taps to the trees there. Then I went to the wizard to finally purchase the beach and mountain obelisks. I spent the remainder of the day grinding frozen geodes and iron in the mines. I returned home to do some regular duties and to scythe all the trees at my mushroom log farm, which now conveniently doubles as a moss farm. The morning of day 175, I harvested more starfruit wine, and then I got to working on the greenhouse. I planted all 50 of the pineapple seeds I had grinded along with some extra starfruit seeds I had. At Ginger Island, I grabbed another cycle of honey, and I determined that if I wanted to add more honey capacity here, I was going to have to plant more fairy roses, so that's just what I did. After that, I made sure to go to the desert to chop down some trees that had grown and to collect some more oak resin from the taps there. I went to the forest the next morning and tried for it, but I still didn't get the missing bone flute. I cut down a few trees while I was there, then headed to Clint's to crack some of the frozen geodes I had found. After cracking open everything that I had, I didn't get the marble unfortunately, and I also noticed that I had 10 pineapple seeds stored up here at Clint's, which made me feel a little silly. But anyways, today I had the geode buff from the dwarf statue, so I went to the mines to find some more frozen geodes. I barely made it home in time to close the animals and make it to bed, bobbing and weaving between all the money, truffles, scattered all over the pig pen. In the morning, I picked up all that money lying around, then I sold my first eggplant, the second to last shippable left. I went to the desert to harvest some maple syrup, then I chopped down a bunch of trees that had already grown quite quickly. I replanted all the seeds that had dropped from chopping, then I went home to catch Clint in time for some geode cracking. Unfortunately, I still didn't get the marble I needed. So, it was back to the mines for another night of geode grinding. Day 178 was another one of those intensely sweaty ones. I was on a time crunch pretty much every second. I had to replant another 570 or so starfruit at Ginger Island, but before I could even do that, I started the day whacking casks in my basement because the starfruit wine had just finished aging to gold quality. By the time I had finished replanting the plot at Ginger Island, I had little time left to recask another batch of starfruit wine. I unfortunately was just a little too slow to get all 189 tiles occupied in the basement, and so I slept on the cold cellar floor this night. At least it was free to pass out here. In the morning, I placed the remaining 9 starfruit wine I had in casks. Then, it was time to see Clint for some more geode crushing, and I was absolutely hyped when I saw this marble drop. Next, I grabbed the Pierre's Prime Produce special order from the special orders board because I was already growing a metric truckload of pumpkins. When I got back to the farm, I figured now was a good time to start increasing keg capacity, so I added 71 more to my arsenal. And while I was at it, I also made 8 more mushroom logs for the mushroom farm. I went to the desert to trade for more espresso and spicy eel, then I stopped at Ginger Island to harvest the honey before it got too late. The lava eels asked for mega bombs, and I didn't ask any questions, although maybe I should have. All the fruit trees had finished growing in my greenhouse, giving it this awesome lush look with the added bonus of increasing my cash flow. I harvested the mushrooms and moss and placed the new mushroom logs down, finally filling the layout entirely. I brought 6 more treasure totems to the forest to see if I could finally pull the bone flute artifact, but it looks like I wasn't lucky enough to today. I went to the mines to do some copper grinding. Despite being near the very end of this run, copper was a majorly important resource still because of how many kegs I still need. The morning of day 181, I brought 5 more treasure totems to the forest, and you guessed it, I did not dig up the bone flute. I went to the quarry to blow off steam and blow stuff up. Then it was back to the mines for copper and iron grinding. And just when I was feeling so down on my luck, at 6 p.m., I got a prismatic shard to drop from a dust sprite. I went to enchant my hoe with it, and I got archaeologist. Let's see that bone flute hide from me now. Anyways, I had to harvest some starfruit wine and get some more starfruit fermenting before 2 a.m. And at the end of the day, I made almost another million G. The morning of day 182 finished Shippable's completion with the final item, a fairy rose. I also put down an eggplant to pickle for my furry friends in the forest. I decided to finally plant some ancient fruit seeds because why not? I then restocked the animals' hay because I was nearly out again. Bunch of pigs. I then went to the desert to harvest more oak resin, and while I was there, I fertilized more trees and traded for enough espresso, spicy eel, and staircases to finish out the run. I went home to go craft more kegs and determined that I was nearly out of wood. Wasn't expecting that. To this point, the big blockage for me was always oak resin, not wood. So I put all my stone and plant fiber stores to good use and crafted 250 tree fertilizer. Then I went to the quarry to plant and fertilize as many seeds as I possibly could. The next morning, I finally got the full shipment achievement. This was a major milestone. But that didn't make me forget about my wood problem. I spent the morning and a chunk of the afternoon planting and fertilizing seeds at the desert. Then I went on a chopping spree to get as much wood as possible, both at the desert and around the valley. I ended up getting home at 11 p.m. with just enough wood to craft another 47 kegs. I added more to the army of kegs at the south of the farm and set some starfruit in them to ferment. I had just enough time to harvest the mushrooms too. The next day I harvested the pumpkins, and despite wanting to save these to turn into juice, I did some math and determined I was better off just selling them. Today was the Stardew Valley Fair, so I wouldn't be able to turn in the gold quality pumpkins for Pierre until tomorrow, as I wanted to make sure I had as much time as possible today to work on duties, such as bone flute hunting. And after just 2 treasure totems in the Cindersap Forest, I finally got it! I ran around in circles for a little bit to signify my joy, then I had to get back to work. I went to Ginger Island next to harvest some more liquid gold, then I went to the key room to check on progress. I could really jack this number up quickly with a quick crafting and cooking marathon, but I wanted to hold off on that for now. At the keyboard, I immediately swerved away from the Junimo cart challenge, so the 4 precious stones one would have to do. I went home to harvest 79 truffles and tapped my foot patiently while waiting for the aptly named Dr. Evil to go inside so I could close up the pens for the night and get to the desert. At the dangerous Skull Cavern, my burglar ring procced a particularly rare double galaxy soul drop from a purple slime on floor 3. When I got home, I grabbed the pickled eggplant and made a fairy dust for the broccoli being juiced in one of the kegs. I brought both items to the raccoons to complete their fetch quest for the week. Day 185 was the day that my first batch of 50 pineapples finished up, so I harvested and shipped those. Then, I headed to Ginger Island to seed some more starfruit so I could replant it in the greenhouse. After that, I dropped off 25 pumpkins at Pierre's, then I grabbed the super omelet special order for Gus. I brought the bone flute to the museum, finally completing the collection there, and I collected the final stardrop, showing your final reminder to please like the video and even consider subscribing because this project took an insane amount of time to make and because, again,
It'd be a lot cooler if you did.
I went to Clint's to crack some of my stored up golden mystery boxes. Then it was straight to the Skull Cavern for the remainder of the day because I had some prismatic shards to hunt down. I did find the first prismatic shard on floor 85. On floor 100, I received a free crystallarium from a chest, which is always nice, and just before I called it quits for the night, I got a second prismatic shard on floor 121. I harvested some more starfruit wine and kept the cycle moving the next day. I then harvested maple syrup at the desert and went straight into the Skull Cavern for another day of prismatic shard hunting. Lucky enough, on the first iridium node I cracked down on floor 36, I dropped a third prismatic shard. And as if I hadn't spent enough luck in the last 3 days, the very next iridium node that I cracked on floor 46 held the 4th and final prismatic shard for the challenge. I used the last of my staircases by floor 187, setting a floor record that would stand for the rest of the run. Day 187 was rainy, meaning no truffle income unfortunately, but I got to harvest the mushrooms a day early at least. I checked the traveling cart to see if a snow yam was mixed into her wares today, but alas, it was not. I went around the valley chopping down any trees that had finished growing by this point, and I was pleasantly surprised to find the quarry brimming with wood for harvest. By the end of chopping it all, I had another 3,100 wood ready for use. Then it was off to Ginger Island. I brought the prismatic shards to Key, then I decided that I had enough gems on hand to just go ahead and purchase the 3rd galaxy soul. At home, I forged all 3 into my hammer to create the infinity gavel, granting me the infinite power achievement. Now it was at this point I decided to finally cook every recipe in the game. I had 3 hours left in the night, and all the ingredients I needed were in my kitchen. All that I had to do was I finally got the Gourmet Chef achievement. And if you'd like to know what a chest with mostly every recipe in the game looks like, here you go. And I'm just gonna shove this in the corner here, never to be opened again. Off to bed. Day 188 was another busy day. I brought 20 more bee houses along with me to Ginger Island, and I added those to the honey array on the west side of the farm. After harvesting all the starfruit and all the honey here, I had to reseed the entire plot, which always takes a while for all this space. Back at the main farm, I procured all the recently finished starfruit wine from the 300 keg batch and started another massive cycle over. Day 189 was an oak resin harvest day at the desert, and while I was there, I also exchanged another jade stockpile. While passing through the Witch's Swamp, I fished up a gold quality void salmon for the Lost Bundle. I stopped by the traveling cart in hopes I would find a snow yam, but I still did not. I decided to clear some of the mailed quests that I had received and neglected to this point for the sake of getting my journal all cleaned up. I brought Emily an apricot and Pierre a sashimi. Along the way, I picked up a help wanted request for Demetrius to slay some rock crabs. I brought Clint an iron bar, and then I crafted 47 more kegs at home and dropped some more starfruit in them. Demetrius's challenge was knocked out quickly later in the mines. Then I spent the rest of the night mining for iron because I needed some more for my scheduled crafting marathon later this week. The morning of day 190, I went to Ginger Island to purchase Pierre's missing shopping list. While I was there, I grabbed the Keys Prismatic Grange quest for some extra key gems. I checked on progress, and 84% had me feeling pretty good. It wasn't 100% though, so not good enough. I then planted a strawberry seed I'd been saving in the greenhouse back at home and hit it with some hyper speed grow, as it was time to start gunning for the polyculture achievement. I brought Pam a battery for a journal quest, then Kent a starfruit, and finally I brought Pierre his missing stock list, inexplicably allowing him to immediately manifest all the seeds he previously hadn't been selling instantaneously. I'm not complaining. I needed a bunch of these for the polyculture achievement I just mentioned. I went to see Sandy for some rhubarb and beet seeds as well, and I brought some truffle oil to Lewis for whatever purposes he had for it. I'm not much of a questions guy. I went to tell Demetrius I'm a professional rock crab slayer, completing the help wanted quest, and then I decided to spend the remainder of the day fishing at the dig site on Ginger Island, because there was still one last journal scrap eluding me at this point. Unfortunately, I did not find it by the end of the day, so I would have to come back. Today was a new raccoon quest, and thankfully he just wanted some geodes and bat wings for this one, so I took care of it quickly. I found the prismatic butterfly for the day right after dropping those items off, and was very happy to get another prismatic shard out of it. I dropped off 2 dozen eggs at Gus's for his special order. I took on the Cave Patrol special order for Clint. I gathered up everything for the Prismatic Range quest, including purchasing 48 more cherry bombs from the dwarf, and 100 more Joja Colas from the saloon vending machine. Then I went to Ginger Island to drop it all off at the key room. With my rewarded key gems, I purchased the key to the town, completely rounding out my collection of special items and buffs in the menu. After that, I harvested a batch of 73 starfruit here, and used the empty space to plant a ton of different things that I either needed for polyculture, or that I might need for raccoon quests coming up soon. Then I spent the remainder of the evening grinding dust sprites for Clint's special order. Day 192, I planted some more grass starter for the pigs because they were eating the hay stores like, well, a bunch of pigs. I promise that's the last time I'll make that joke. I harvested my second batch of 50 pineapples, and once they get shipped tonight, I'll have completed the island ingredients special order for Caroline. I grabbed another round of honey at Ginger Island, then I went to the dig site to do some more journal scrap hunting. After going a while without catching the scrap though, I decided to switch to the volcano instead, and on the first level there, I caught the journal scrap. This completed my collection of secret notes and journal scraps, which was another portion of the game 100% finished.
Now at this point I was confident that I could achieve every single achievement in the game before the end of year 2. But there was one snag. Thank you. Unfortunately, I really dragged my feet on the raccoon quests. I took too much time, and it looks like I have a razor-thin window to get that final achievement by the end of year 2. So, priority number 1 to make sure that we do finish this run on time is every single time there's a raccoon fetch quest refresh, I need to make sure that I'm there, getting whatever it is that they need to expand their happy family.
Back to the run. I went back home to pick up the day's truffles and to finish out Clint's special order before it got too late. I managed to complete it with plenty of time to spare, and I spent the remainder of the night at the beach. I was here to set some crab pots out and to fish up an albacore for a couple of old fetch quests that I wanted to clear from the journal. I got the solar panel recipe from Caroline in the morning, and now with every recipe in my possession, I decided it was time to craft one of everything. I crafted a new big chest to store all the items and got right to it. I skipped over the winter seeds. Curse you, past shift. I was able to craft one of everything else without issue, and stored it up accordingly. The next morning, I placed a new auto grabber I had found yesterday in the barn where Ozzy and Betsy stay. I spent the morning harvesting the final starfruit crop that I would get from my greenhouse before replacing most of the free tiles with other pertinent polyculture crops. I checked the traveling cart with my fingers crossed, hoping to find the snow yam, and she had a regular yam, but not the snow kind, unfortunately. After handling those menial side tasks, I took a breath at 1:30 p.m. in the afternoon for what felt like the first time this entire run. I zoomed out as far as my mod would let me to just gaze upon my progress, and I finally realized that this base is hideous.
I had some moving around to do for sure. But before I could decorate for even just a second, the casks in the basement needed attention. And what you are looking at here is the last bit of money I would need to reach my target. To round out the day, I finally went to the old rundown Joja Mart to complete the Lost Bundle, which made the last lonely Junimo there blow up like that muffin from ASDF movie. And there it is, ladies and gentlemen. I finally hit 10 million G. Obviously, I went straight to the wizard to purchase the golden clock. You may be saying, now what, Shift?
What do you mean? Now we can finally play the game.
Ah, isn't it beautiful? Now all that pesky debris will stay off the farm, meaning I could decorate my land without worrying about random junk showing up to mess up my feng shui, after all these kegs are done processing all this excess starfruit I still have. And don't think I forgot about that strawberry. Luckily, I put this fresh one in the seed maker and got 3 more seeds out of it. In the morning, I harvested some more starfruit wine, then it was time to check the traveling cart, and I did not find the snow yam. Oh well, that's a bit sad, but I can't complain. Getting 100% by winter 1 of year 2 is still a major accomplishment. I went to Ginger Island to harvest the honey and accidentally harvested one of the fairy roses I had grown here. And then it was time for me to start working on bigger and better things, like finally moving around the obelisks and buying the community upgrades from Robin. I also picked up the furniture catalog here, since I had enough disposable money to start worrying about aesthetics, something I clearly have not prioritized the entire run. I wanted to check the help wanted board for another job to do, and found one there for Leia. After bringing her a smallmouth bass, I decided to buy a movie ticket to the newly constructed theater. I earned the achievement for seeing a movie as soon as I entered though, and I'm not really interested in spending time here, so I left. I'm kidding, what kind of evil person would do such a thing? I stuck around to watch Mysterium, and I realized in that moment that this would have been an awesome movie to invite my roommate Krobus to. Oh well. I got a treasure chest at Lewis's machine, then I went home to start working on cleaning up this. In the morning, on the first day of winter, I stepped outside, and for the first time in over a year, I wasn't inundated with machines spitting items out at me. The scene was peaceful. The snow-covered ground reminded me of the serenity that comes with winter. Okay, enough of that. I have to find a snow yam today. I quickly found one with my first treasure totem, which was expectedly nice and easy. Now you know how stupid I must feel for not having saved one of these incredibly easy to procure items all this time. I crafted the winter seeds and finally got the Craftmaster achievement. Look at that. 100% on the key tracker. Isn't it gorgeous? That was worth 2 hours of your time, wasn't it? Back at the farm, I harvested some more starfruit wine, meaning I could finally move some of these kegs into storage while I fleshed out the farm's layout. On the morning of day 198, I got the notification that Grandpa was proud. I decided to cut down 7 of my 9 mystic trees. I went to the job board outside Pierre's, took on Clint's Cave Patrol special order, and met with the raccoons to pick up the next fetch quest. This time, they just wanted dried common mushrooms and white algae. I quickly grabbed them from storage and dropped them off for a reward. Just 3 more fetch quests for them to go. I decided to bring the mushroom logs from the home farm to the desert where I had plenty of oak trees just in case the raccoons asked for dried morels. And I had just enough time at the end of the day to barge into the wizard's back door and move buildings around on the farm. Day 199, I organized my horribly mismanaged storage for the sake of building this cool workbench-centered crafting hub in the north corner of my base. I went to the help wanted board around midnight and was able to swipe a new job for Demetrius, who just wanted me to catch some herring. I had just enough time before bed to replace my array of 40 crystallariums and get them restocked with useful gems once again. Day 200 felt like a bit of a milestone, so I decided to celebrate by gifting everybody in town either a diamond or a rabbit's foot. And it was around midnight that I realized I wasn't recording for the entire day, so I'll just show you the walk back home from the sewer and a clip of my gift completion while I list off what I did today. I finished Demetrius's request, then I completed another one of the wizards to slay 2 squid kids. I spent 300,000 G at Robin's on the Shortcuts community upgrade. Everybody got a gift by the end of the day, even Elliot, who couldn't keep me out now that I had a key to his house. And I made sure that the final one of the day went to the most important villager of all, my best friend Krobus. Day 201, I remembered to record, and I started the day by planting more strawberries in the greenhouse. I went to the traveling cart and was quite pleased to find the Joja and Junimo catalogs there for purchase. I went to the beach at 6 p.m. to fish for albacore for a Willy Help Wanted quest. After completing it, I went to report my prowess to Willy, then I spent the rest of the night in the mines finishing up Clint's special order. Midnight rolled around, and when I completed his order, I accomplished the 4th to last achievement, a big help, meaning my time as a gopher doing odd jobs for the village could finally come to an end. Day 202, I was able to clear my kegs on the farm now that the starfruit wine was all finished. I set up a location for my furnaces right next to the storage because it made the most sense. I spent the afternoon setting up excess kegs at the quarry and decorating it. And here's what it looked like when I was all finished up around 6 p.m.
p.m. the next day. The morning of day 204, I harvested a bunch of stuff at the desert, including some morels. I went to the key room with my fingers crossed for the Danger in the Deep quest on the quest board, and I found it. I purchased 3 deconstructors with my stockpile of key gems and set them up at home with some hoppers. Day 205 was another raccoon quest day. Looks like they just want dried coconuts and powder melon jelly. I used some fairy dust to speed things up, then brought the items over. After that, the remainder of the day was spent getting as far as possible in the dangerous mines. I didn't make it all the way down, but with 60 staircases in tow and a ladder's buff from the dwarf statue this morning, I reached floor 105 by the time I had to leave. The next morning, when I went to restock hay at Marnie's, I decided to purchase a golden egg for the sake of vanity. I popped that in the coop's incubator, then I went to the mountains to see Robin about some home upgrades. After purchasing everything, I made sure to remove the crib because, well, you can't procreate with Provis, so... After that, I had a few more floors to get through in the dangerous mines. When I hit floor 120, I got the third to last achievement, Danger in the Deep. Day 212 arrived quickly as I spent most of the time between my last recording and now decorating. Today was a raccoon quest day, so I was on my way to check what I'd be fetching for them. A diamond and 10 moss, not bad. I brought the items straight over and was rewarded with 25 powder melon seeds. I was only 7 days away from their final fetch quest. Day 214, I sold the last 2 cauliflower for the polyculture achievement. I also finished decorating the interior of my home, which I thought came out quite nice. I awoke the morning of day 215 a bit confused. I hadn't gotten the achievement for polyculture. Then it hit me. I forgot red cabbages! I went to Pierre's as soon as he opened, and with hyper speed grow in hand, I planted all the red cabbages that I would need to get the achievement. In other news, my golden chicken hatched, and I named her Goldilocks. On the morning of day 219, it was time to see the final fetch quest for the raccoons. Once again, they requested 10 moss, and this time they were seeking 3 ghost fish. Catching the 3 fish was easy, and after I had enough stone from the mines, I brought the fish to the raccoons to complete the final fetch quest for them, but I would need to wait 7 more days to get the cutscene that procs the Good Neighbors achievement. The morning of day 222, I checked the greenhouse for my red cabbages and was happy to find them all grown. After shipping them, I went to Ginger Island with a ton of flooring in hand. I was a bit lazy with how I decorated the place because most of it was just flooring, but I decided it was good enough. When I went to bed at the end of the night, the achievement sound played, and I awoke the next morning to the polyculture achievement accomplished. By this point in the run, I was about tired of decorating, and I had had enough. Thankfully, I only had the Ginger Island farmhouse left to decorate, and here's how it came out when I was finished on the last day of winter. If you've made it to this point in the video, I just want to say thank you. This is my first major YouTube project, and it's the thing I've spent more time on than almost anything in my life. To most, it's just a Stardew Valley video, but to me, this was a dream made real. This project is my way of saying, I can do it, I did do it, and I'll keep doing it, because I believe in what I make. As you watch this final walkthrough of the world I built, the same world where I hit every milestone, planted every crop, fought every monster, know that this wasn't about perfection points or achievements. This was about believing that I could create something meaningful, and I think I did. Every second, every edit, every tile placed was proof that the only permission I needed was my own. So if you made it here, truly, thank you. This video exists because someone like you might see it, and if you enjoyed it, even a little, then it was all worth it. If you'd like to see what comes next, please subscribe, and if this video spoke to you, even in a quiet way, consider following the link in the description and supporting me on Patreon, so I can keep making things that matter, not just to me, but maybe to you too. Thank you again for being here with me. I hope you enjoyed watching as much as I loved playing. Now let's go claim that final achievement and reach the summit. Overnight, Grandpa congratulated me for my hard work these last 2 years, and in the morning, I found his shrine lit and the statue of perfection waiting. I decided to compliment this statue with the statue of endless fortune, which I purchased from a shady guy at Keys Casino for 1 million G, and there was still one more statue I needed to get to complete the Trinity. I went to the key tracker at the key room on Ginger Island, and finally received my statue of true perfection. I set all 3 of them up together in front of the house to signify my crowning achievement. The morning of day 226, I entered Cindersap Forest, the cutscene for Good Neighbors played, and I finally got the Good Neighbors achievement. Now there was only one thing left to do. That was climb the summit. Thank you again for joining me on this journey. This was the best Stardew Valley playthrough I have ever had. That said, as the title suggests, I would never recommend playing the game this way to anybody. While it was satisfying to achieve true perfection in such a short time frame, I think Concerned Ape created this game with the goal in mind of giving players a slow-paced, campy environment to relax, decorate, and strive in, at their own pace. Just because I and other geeks on YouTube have been able to do it, doesn't mean it's the best or most optimal way to play. Stardew Valley is a game that was created with casual fun in mind, so play it however you want. I won't judge, and it wouldn't matter if I did. This was just how I played it, and I'm glad that I could share it with you.